Very well. I would like to call to order the December 15th, 2025 regular board meeting of the State College Area School District Board of Directors. If everyone could please rise who is able for the Pledge of Allegiance. I'd like to welcome everyone joining us this evening, both in person and remotely. The board held an executive session on December 1st regarding legal, personnel, student, and parental issues, and prior to this meeting regarding legal, personnel, and student discipline. I would now like to, before beginning the agenda, I would like to address a letter of resignation that the board received this morning from Ms. Gretchen Brandt, which could go into effect beginning January 5th of 2026. A recent decision by the Pennsylvania Supreme Court has expanded the circumstances under which school districts may take official action on items that were not listed on the agenda posted at least 24 hours prior to the public meeting. Under this ruling, the board must first take a separate vote to add such an item to the agenda before any official action can occur. As a result, the board may vote to add Ms. Brandt's resignation as an action item later in this evening's agenda. This would appear as action item 10E. If any board members have questions regarding this ruling, Dr. Etter is available to address them at this time. No questions? All right. May I have a motion to add Ms. Brandt's resignation to the agenda?
So moved.
Motion, do I have a second?
Seconded. Bader.
We have a motion and a second. Are there any questions or discussion? And this is just to add it to the agenda. All right. Is there any public comment on adding this item to the agenda? No. All right. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. In accordance with the ruling, the board's secretary will update the board's online agenda to reflect this change by tomorrow. Otherwise, board members with the agenda before you, do you have any additional changes you would like to request? All right. I would like to now call on the board secretary. Sorry. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
Did you want to note the consent agenda
Yeah,
item?
just a reminder that we wanted to pull something from the consent agenda.
Okay.
I thought we needed to do that now.
Oh, do we need to do that now? Okay.
It's easier.
Okay. Very good.
So
So without, sorry, Amy, what were you saying? It's
Without objection.
well, sorry, yes. Without objection, we would like to pull policy 918 from the consent agenda approval this evening. There's some language in there that is going to be addressed again in policy committee tomorrow, so without objection.
Agreed.
Okay. Now, at this time, I'd like to call on the board secretary, Ms. Tressler, to conduct the roll call of board members present.
Dr. Anderson?
Here.
Dr. Bader?
Here.
Dr. Barlow?
Here.
Ms. Black?
Here.
Ms. Brandt?
Here.
Dr. Dino?
Here.
Ms. Damaris?
Here.
Ms. Huff?
Here.
Dr. Miller?
Here. Let's see, moving on to communications. Tonight, we recognize a group of educators who will be retiring at the end of this school year after more than 2 decades of service. It is common practice for these to be announced prior to the end of the year, even though most of them go into effect at the end of the year. These educators have supported generations of students, adapted to constant change, and shown up every day with a deep commitment to their work. Their influence is lasting on their students, colleagues, and the schools they help to shape. And their impact will remain part of the district for years to come. On behalf of the entire school community, thank you for your dedication, your professionalism, and your many years of service. We are grateful and wish these individuals the best in their next chapter. And so we're going to announce several retirements this evening. We'll read some comments about each of those retirees. I will share some, and then Ms. Damaris will share some as well. So first, Kevin Cooper will retire in June after 33 years with the district. Mr. Cooper was hired on January 11th, 1994 as a custodian at the high school. In 2001, he became custodian at Lamont Elementary and worked there until returning to the high school in 2003. David Parmalee, assistant director of the physical plant, said that Kevin, often referred to as Coop, was a staple in the schools where he worked. His quiet and kind demeanor was a welcome addition to the bustling and busy school environment, Parmalee added. He found enjoyment in not just being part of the school community, but also in the accomplishments of the students, Parmalee added. It was more than once that he excitedly discussed the impressive creations of the high school culinary students and reveled in being invited to partake in their tastings during the school day. In this same vein, he was known to give back to both students and teachers by being receptive to their needs and doing his best to support them. Funny and good-natured, he was quick with a joke or a funny story that could lighten any mood. The board thanks Mr. Cooper for his service and wishes him best in retirement. Next, we have Mary Robert. Mary Robert will retire in June after 34 years with the district. Since August 28, 1991, she has served as an elementary teacher at Radio Park Elementary School. Radio Park Principal Alex Raup called Mary a class act and top-notch educator whose presence will be missed. Her genuine care, intentionality, and desire to support students and their families has impacted every student who has ever been lucky enough to have her as a teacher, myself included, Raup added. Mrs. Robert is an institution here at Radio Park, and her retirement will leave huge shoes to fill. The board thanks Mary for her service and wishes her the best in her retirement. Next up, we have Molly McAninch. Molly McAninch will retire in June after 35 years with the district. On August 28, 1990, Molly was hired as a music teacher at the junior high school. She moved to the Park Forest Middle School in 1995, and in 2019, she became the music department coordinator. Tina Chambers Green, interim principal at Park Forest Middle School, noted that Molly's students at PFMS have earned multiple accolades and awards for their talents. Green added, the SCASD Music Department has continued earning national recognition as a best community for music education each year since she became chair in 2019. Molly inspires the love of music in her students, Chambers Green added. She is always supportive of finding opportunities for our students to showcase their talent and promoting challenges for them to build their skills. We thank Molly for her years of dedication to our students and to our community, and the board thanks her for her years of service also. Amy Allison will retire in June after 25 years with the district. On September 29, 2001, Amy was hired as an English teacher at Delta and the Delta High School South building. In 2004, she became an English teacher exclusively at Delta. Director of Educational Alternatives, John Downs, said Amy is a foundational piece of the Delta community and a true champion for student voices. Amy's passion for English and the language arts is only surpassed by the love she has for her students and supporting them inside and outside the classroom, Downs said. Amy is a true advocate who is always championing student voice in the democratic processes we have in place in the Delta schools. Her energy, sense of humor, and dedication to serving others will be dearly missed. We wish her all the best in her well-deserved retirement, and the board thanks Amy for her years of service and also wishes her the best in retirement. I would now like to turn it over to Ms. Damaris to read the remaining retirements.
Thank you, Dr. Miller. The next one is Lori Duffy. Lori Duffy will retire in June after 35 years with the district. On January 29th, 1990, oh, you can't hear me. Oh, sorry. I'm trying not to scream. On January 29th, 1990, Lori was hired as an English teacher at the junior high school. Since 1995, she's been the English teacher at Mount Nittany Middle School. Mount Nittany Middle School Principal Brian Ischler praised Lori's dedication to her students and her willingness to go above and beyond to help them find their writing voices. Mrs. Duffy has an impact on numerous students and their writing ability, Ischler said. She works individually with students to find a way to express themselves and bring out their voice in writing. Mount Nittany Middle School would like to wish Mrs. Duffy a happy retirement. The board thanks Lori for her service and also wishes her the best in her retirement. Next, we have Sandra Constable. She will retire after 26 years with the district. She was hired on October 30th, 2000 as an elementary physical education teacher. Over her career, she has worked at Hauserville, Lamont, Fairmont Ave, Coral Street, Ferguson Township, Grayswoods, and most recently, Spring Creek Elementary Schools. Spring Creek Principal Paul Brigman said Constable has been a model educator and dedicated proponent for healthy living and child development. He credited her for going above and beyond by organizing civic engagement programs like the American Heart Association Student Challenge and running field days. Mrs. Constable has strived to help our children learn the importance of personal health, physical well-being, and connectedness within a learning community day in and day out, Brigman said. She has also brought a wonderful element of creativity to her role, making each learning activity in her classes student-focused, interesting, and fun for all children. And she has done this through the lens of inclusivity and a deep belief in creating a sense of belonging for all. Mrs. Constable has made a tremendous impact on our community, and her caring, loving influences will be long-lasting for every child and adult in our community. Thank you, Sandy Constable, for being a gift you have given our school and our district. The board wishes Sandra and her service. The board wishes Sandra for her thanks Sandra for her service and wishes her the best in retirement. Next, we have Karen Weiser. Karen Weiser will retire on March 20th after 28 years with the district. Weiser joined the district on September 1st, 1998 as a Spanish teacher and MRC teacher at Mount Nittany Middle School and Park Forest Middle School. In 2001, she became assistant principal at Mount Nittany Middle School, a position she held for 4 years before becoming principal at the school in August 2005. We appreciate Dr. Weiser's longstanding service to our school community and her dedication to students, staff, and families throughout her tenure, said Jonathan Booker, Assistant Superintendent, for secondary education. Over the years, she has provided leadership and supported numerous initiatives within the district. We wish Dr. Weiser the very best in her retirement and thank her for her contributions to our district. The board thanks Karen for her service and also wishes her the best in retirement. And lastly, John Lodge. John Lodge will retire in June with 25 years with the district. Since August 31st, 1998, John has taught social studies at the high school. High school principal Laura Tobias congratulated John on his many years of dedicated service to the social studies department and said his impact will resonate with the lives of his former students and the department of years to come. He leaves behind a legacy defined by a deep, genuine care for his students, she said. We extended our heartfelt gratitude for his years of service and wish him the very best in all that lies ahead. Assistant Director of Curriculum Jackie Saylor noted that John made many contributions to curriculum development, including the district's African American Studies course. As an instructor, John worked to provide meaningful educational experiences to his students and served as an advisor for several clubs and activities during his tenure, she said. Most importantly, John's colleagues appreciate his kindness and collaborative nature and his willingness to put forth extra time and attention to support his students. The board thanks John for his service, wishes him the best for his retirement, and all of the people that were mentioned here. Thank you for all of your service. Our district was better with you all here.
Thank you, Rebecca, and I would agree with that. I think it's a testament to our district that we have so many talented people who've been with us for so long. I'd like to now call on Mr. Johnson to share his superintendent update.
Thank you, Dr. Miller. Following the reorganization meeting earlier this month, I did not get a chance to formally thank Deb Anderson for her dedicated service on the board leadership as vice president. This is an important and time-consuming role, and you carried it out with professionalism, thoughtfulness, and a strong sense of responsibility. Your leadership, study, guidance, and willingness to serve were truly appreciated and made a meaningful impact on the work of the board and the district as a whole. Deb, thank you for the great care and commitment you brought to the district during your time as vice president. So thank you. We encourage families and community members to attend a community forum on the Park Forest Middle School project on Tuesday, January 6th. The Board of Directors could vote as early as January on whether to approve the final building design for the new middle school. This is another opportunity for the public to ask questions and share feedback before the board considers this action. Planning for the future improvements at our elementary playgrounds will also be discussed at this district-wide facilities master plan forum, which starts at 6 p.m. at Park Forest Middle School. That would be it.
All right, thank you, Mr. Johnson. I would now like to call on Ryan Brown, who is filling in for Madison Bordenstein, to provide this evening's student update. Go ahead, Ryan.
Thank you, Dr. Miller. My mic on?
Mike, is the mic on?
There we go.
There we go.
Thank you, Dr. Miller. The State High Roar store will be offering holiday hours open to the entire community on Wednesday, December 17th, and Monday, December 22nd, from 5:30 to 7:30 p.m. They'll be running a holiday discount on full price apparel and accessories. To find the store, enter the back entrance of the high school and then go down the staircase. This is a great opportunity to stop by and grab gifts or stocking stuffers for your family, so we hope to see you there. State High DECA competed at the district conference recently and had 67 members qualify for states, earning 52 of the 56 spots and all first place finishes. Congratulations to everyone who competed and worked hard to make this happen. A special shout out to Clara Kraft, who was selected as the 25-26 district representative. Congratulations to our State High speech and debate team for their outstanding performance at the LaSalle tournament. Award winners were Camille McConnon, who came in second in declamation speech. Cece Van Ness came in fifth in varsity congressional debate, and Anna Chen and Sinai Perkate came in sixth in duo interpretation. Additionally, Ricky Nargi, Gilbert Zhao, Quinn Hickson, Emily Brightbill, Zoe Howfield, Mame Yabu were finalists in various events. Great job, everybody.
Thank you, Ryan, and thank you for stepping in this evening. Jackie, do you have a legislative update for us?
Yeah, I've just got a few things. So I wanted to let you all know that the PA Senate finally confirmed Governor Shapiro's nomination to the Secretary of Education role as Dr. Carrie Rao. So she's officially been confirmed. And then the other thing happening in Harrisburg right now is that I think tomorrow there's going to be a vote in the full Senate on a bill that would impose a ban on cell phones in Pennsylvania's K-12 schools from bell to bell. This was passed out of committee last week unanimously. For what it's worth, when PSBA, the Legislative Advisory Committee, has talked at PSBA, we've all expressed that districts all over the state have already figured out this problem, and so we're not really sure why they're trying to legislate it now. Not that there aren't benefits to having discussions about cell phones in school, but we don't know what's going to happen. So if this bill passes, it would go into effect 2027-28, but it is not passed yet. So I will keep you all updated on that.
Interesting. Thank you, Jackie. Gretchen or Jesse, do you have any updates for us from COG?
Jesse?
No.
Okay. All right. That is definitive. All right.
I had one. So
right ahead,
there
Gretchen.
is a Parks Authority meeting on Thursday. That will be the last one I attend as the representative from the school district. Remind me, who is going to plant? Jen Black? Is that correct? No, it's Rebecca. Jen?
Jen is the Parks Authority
So
rep.
anyway, I was just going to invite whoever that is, Rebecca, Jen, whoever that is, to if you would like to come to that meeting as well, then I can introduce you to everyone. And that's Thursday at 12:15 in the general forum room at the COG building. Thanks.
Great.
And then Jen can give you the update next month.
Wonderful. All right. Thank you, Jesse and Gretchen. We now have time for public comment. Each individual will be allotted up to 3 minutes for items related to board business that are not on a consent or action item for this evening. For those items, public comment will be held just prior to voting on that item. When you come to the podium, please state your name and where you reside in the district. Is there anyone who has registered to make a public comment ahead of time this evening?
No.
All right. Is there anyone present in the room who would like to make a public comment at this time? Going once, going twice. Is there anyone online?
No.
All right. Very well.
Aaron, I forgot to say something
Yes,
since there's
go
no
right
public
ahead.
comment. So that position is appointed by the borough, so the board president will have to be in contact with the borough to get the ball rolling for that to happen.
Okay.
Thanks.
And I just, at least from my experience, the borough always goes with whoever we pick.
Okay. So we did have an update. Good to know. Again, does anyone in the room like to make a comment? And we have nobody online, Ms. Dressler. All right. In that case, we will move on to the consent agenda, which includes several items that we will address with a single motion for approval. To facilitate any questions or discussion, we'll go through each category individually. Please raise your hand if you need a clarification on any of the items as I present each group. First, we have consent for approval of the minutes from several of our previous meetings. This is usually pretty straightforward. Okay. Next, we have consent operations. Any questions or clarification about the operations? We have some physical plant routine approvals, some budget transfers and district bills. Pretty standard boilerplate stuff. And we have instructional programs, some student travel, as well as a research proposal by Dr. Sarah Watts. If anybody had any questions about that. All right, very well. And we move on to consent for policies. So these are policies that we've discussed previously. As noted at the beginning of the meeting, policy 918 has been removed and will be discussed tomorrow in the policy committee meeting. Any questions about these? All right, very well. In that case, I would entertain a motion to approve consent agenda items 6 through 9 as listed above.
Brandt, so moved.
Demo second.
We have a motion and a second. Are there any additional questions or discussion on the consent agenda? Any public comment on any of the things on our consent agenda this evening? All right. Board members voting aye, please raise your hand. Aye. Board members voting nay? All right, that motion.
Aaron,
Yeah.
I have to recuse myself before, voting on that, on the consent of operations for 7C.
Okay, so,
I approve all the other ones. I just have to recuse myself for personal.
We didn't separate them out, so
Yeah.
you'll recuse yourself from all of them because.
Oh, okay.
okay.
Yeah.
So we have 8 aye and 1 recusal for Ms. Damaris? Okay.
Yep.
Very well. All right, so we're going to move on to action items in that case. Action item 10A is a motion to approve the 2024-2025 audited financial statements. This is shown in attachment 10A. May I have a motion?
Brandt, so moved.
Anderson, second.
I have a motion and a second. Are there any questions or discussion about this action item? We'll go over here. Go over here. All right. In that case, is there any public comment about this action item? No. All right. Board members in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Action item 10B, agenda item 10B is a motion to approve a change order for the Mount Nittany Elementary addition. This is shown in attachment 10B. May I have a motion?
Brandt,
So-
so moved.
Did we have a second? Okay,
Demo
Bader
and
and Demo.
second.
Okay. We have a motion and a second. Are there any questions or discussion about this action item? Yes, go ahead, Ann.
So Mike, is this gonna, for the general construction and the amount for the temporary enclosures, that will keep us on task? It'll keep us, the schedule going?
We will not have any schedule impact because of it.
All right, so that's a very important expenditure then. Okay, I just wanted to double check. Great, thanks.
Okay, thanks, Ann. Any other questions? All right, no questions from the board. Is there any public comment about this action item?
No.
All right, seeing none. Board members in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? That motion carries. We have agenda item, where are we at now?
Fairmont.
Sorry, we have agenda item 10C, which is a motion to approve the permission to bid Fairmount abatement. This is now shown in attachment 10C. May I have a motion?
Brandt, so moved.
Barlow, second.
We have a motion and a second. Are there any questions or discussion about this action item? All right, no questions. Do we have any public comment about this item?
No.
All right, in that case, board members in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The motion carries. Next, we have agenda item 10D. This is a motion to approve a 2025-2026 agreement between the district and a parent. There is no attachment for this item. May I have a motion?
Brant, so moved.
Damaris, second.
All right, we have a motion and a second. Are there any questions or discussion about this item, keeping in mind there is no attachment? Probably not. Okay. Very well. Is there any public comment about this item?
No.
All right. Board members in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? All right, that motion carries. And finally, what we just added to our agenda for this evening is a motion to accept the resignation of Ms. Gretchen Brandt as board member of the State College Area School Board, effective January 5th of 2026. May I have a motion?
Bader, so moved.
Demo second.
All right, I have a motion and a second. I think we have some things that we would like to say about Ms. Brandt. I'd like to start by giving Ms. Brandt the opportunity to read a statement that she's prepared.
Thanks, Aaron. So I prepared something so that I wouldn't ramble on. Okay. After 10 years of service, I am resigning from the State College Area School District Board of Directors effective January 5th, 2026. Serving on the board has been a deeply meaningful experience. Over the past decade, I had the opportunity to work alongside dedicated colleagues, administrators, educators, and community members to strengthen educational opportunities for our students. I am proud of the collective work to create the International Baccalaureate Program, implement an extended school day, and establish the district's first Director of Equity. I also work collaboratively to develop and help pass district-wide equity and sustainability policies reflecting a shared commitment to ensuring all students are supported and to planning responsibly for the future. In addition, I valued contributing to important operational and labor efforts, including successfully negotiating a new teachers' union contract. This period of service also included major investments in district facilities, because I was here a while, the planning and construction of the high school, 3 elementary schools, Memorial Field, and the future Park Forest Middle School reflect the community's long-term commitment to public education and will benefit students for generations to come. In addition to my work on the board, I was honored to serve as the district's liaison to the Council of Governments and as the State College Area School District representative to the Center Region Parks Authority. These roles reinforced for me the importance of regional collaboration and the ways in which schools, parks, and local governments together shape the quality of life in our community. As I step away from the board, I do so with gratitude and confidence in the district's leadership and direction. I have recently been elected to the College Township Council, and while this marks a transition in my public service, my commitment to the community remains the same. I look forward to continuing to serve residents in this new role. Thank you to the community for the trust and support extended to me over the past 10 years.
Wonderful. Thank you, Ms. Brandt. At this time, I'm going to turn the floor over to Mr. Johnson.
Thank you, Aaron. I would also like to offer a special thank you to Gretchen Brandt as she prepares to step away from the board and begin a new chapter in public service. During Gretchen's 10 years of the board, she has been a thoughtful advocate for our students and community. She helped lead the district through several major initiatives, which she mentioned, such as the high school project and the construction of 3 elementary schools and playgrounds. She was an outspoken supporter of important issues like sustainability, and she served as a valuable liaison with COG. On behalf of the district, I thank Gretchen for a decade of dedicated service and care to SCASD and wish her well in her future endeavors.
Thank you, Mr. Johnson. At this time, I'd like to open the floor to board members. If you have anything you'd like to say, I'll start on this side of the table. All right. Okay. Yeah, Jesse, go ahead.
I just want to say that it's been a pleasure. Gretchen was one of the people who was the most helpful for me onboarding to this position. I also had the privilege when I was on State College Borough Council and serving with her on other boards. I've learned a lot from Gretchen, and I think College Township will be very well served by her being on that board.
Thank you, Jesse.
Thank you, Gretchen.
Thank you.
Yeah, or anyone? Yeah. Go ahead. No, go ahead, Ann.
Just I wanted to thank you. I've learned a lot. You've been definitive in terms of a lot of the important things I've learned, so I really appreciate that.
Thank you, Anne.
All right, Ms. Damaris?
Thank you for 10 years. My children have been in this district for many of those years. I've known you for many of those years beyond just being on the board. I'm excited for your next moves. I'm sad that you won't be here to help with more guidance sitting on the board. You are extremely thoughtful, and when you are passionate about something, no one's going to get in your way. So thank you so much for all that you have done for this board and for our district. Students matter, teachers matter, and you definitely serve that well.
I would definitely agree with what Ms. Damaris had to say. We had a speech sort of written into the text here, and I'm always somebody who just tends to speak from the heart. So just on a personal note, I really thank you for the years that we've worked together. It was a privilege and an honor to be able to run with you in that election together and then to serve on the board with you. I think the district is in a very good place now because of people like you and because of the time and the energy and the commitment that you put into this position. One thing I'll say about Gretchen is that I really feel that every decision that she made always kept the kids in mind, which is really inspiring, and I think that's what we're here to do. So thank you again for all of your service and for all of your help to me over these last couple of years.
Thanks, Aaron.
All right. Yeah, go ahead.
Thank you, Gretchen, for your service. That's a long time to do what many call a thankless job. I really appreciate that you are approachable as a member of the community, as teachers, as parents. I feel like you're very approachable, and I think that has served you well and will continue to serve you well in your next role. I also appreciate that you, like Aaron said, make your decision with kids in mind and that you have a strong moral compass that you follow. Thank you.
Thanks, Jen.
All right. I don't see any other comments. Is there any public comment about this item? Does anybody wish to make a comment online? All right. In that case, board members in favor of accepting the resignation, please say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. All right. Thank you, Ms. Brandt. And so we will move on next to it. That concludes the action item portion of our agenda. We will now move on to our information reports. Information item 11A. We will invite Mr. Brown, Mr. Fisher, and Dr. Bucher, joined by Mr. Straub of Crabtree Rohrbaugh and Associates, to prevent the final design review for the Park Forest Middle School. Exciting.
So as Mr. Straub is getting his computer up and going here, just wanted to give you, so we're going to provide here really as kind of a fly-through that Crabtree had put together. Gives you a really good visual representation of both the outside and the interior of the school and what kind of it's going to look like. So, Jeff, you got it up?
Yeah, I'm sorry, we're working on double screens here. So as Mr. Fisher mentioned, we're going to go through a short video of the final design for the project, then we'll also open it up to a PowerPoint discussion. And okay. So it's hard to get the
Find the play button.
As Mr. Straub is getting that underway, just a reminder for the public and for people who are watching at home that you'll notice that the plans are typically omitted for security purposes. So those who are in the room will be able to see the plans as they're put up on the screens here.
No, there's no audio.
Okay.
What did you try to run it through? The problem is there's a play button. Oh, I see. Let's go through that. The audio will go through. It'll run through. Can you? I just need to get the mouse back over here.
I know we do need. I was having issues pulling it up also, so I'm terribly surprised. I think so.
Thank you.
All right.
Okay, so we've completed the final design. We're really just completing detailing of the building right now. Code review has been submitted to Center Region Code Administration. So what we wanted to present this evening was just a fly-through of the final design for the project. So both approaching the exterior, this would be coming in the main reception, going through security before entering the building. And we've presented some preliminary renderings, but sort of an actually walking through the whole building. Turning to the left would be the main corridor for your gymnasium, auditorium, cafeteria at the end of the hallway of the building.
Wow.
Music would be off to the right. And then as you enter the cafeteria, wrapping around you would be looking toward the south, out onto the campus.
Look at all those windows.
And actually, we have the advantage of with the slope of the site, you'll actually be dropping off, and so you'll sort of have a view out, dropping down to the surrounding park. Then you would come back out into the main street. The media center is the gray mass on the right side. We'll now be entering the auditorium. A lot of the lessons learned, both from high school, but also some current work that the district has occurring at Mount Nittany Middle School. We've been incorporating that consultant, trying to standardize between both the middle schools in the district. Stepping back out into the main street, concessions, some display cases as we move down towards the main gymnasium. Trying to incorporate a color palette that sort of matches both district-wide colors, but also a unique, what is unique to Park Forest. And there's been a lot of discussions over the past year as we've tried to develop that color scheme for the project. Now we're sort of going down along the technical education wing. Gymnasium is off to the left, and we're now moving out towards what would be the auxiliary gym or the bus entrance for the students coming in from that side of the building. So this becomes a sort of a main artery for students coming in and leaving at the end of the day. That you would have the auxiliary gym just to the right as they come in that entrance. This also gives the ability that we could lock down that sector of the building, utilize it after hours. And some of the color palette that we were using with the main gymnasium we're bringing into this space as well. Three-story classroom wing. This is just sort of a panning around that component of the exterior of the building. And now as we start to move into the classroom wing, that main corridor, that main street for the auditorium, gymnasium, and cafeteria then extends into the classroom wings and breaking off into each of the 2 teams per grade, along with the science commons to the left there. Breakout areas for students. Some limited lockers, a lot of discussion related to that, that we would have more for some hoteling of students if they would need a locker for a day, that they would have different sizes and opportunities. Student street. And then also on the second floor, that street continues down the whole corridor, breaking into art, which is directly above the sciences, languages, these different teams supporting the two teams per grade. Again, the ability to lock down that entire wing as we're passing through these doors. So after hours, the entire academic wing on 3 stories could be locked down. That could also occur if needed for safety reasons during the school day. You would here you're overlooking the main street and then stepping into the media center, which again has that strong view looking out into the campus, but also to the surrounding park to the south. And while we're trying to create, the media center is generally a large open area, we're trying to utilize FF&E, furniture and equipment, to create separate areas and zoning of that sector of the building. Moving around to the eastern entrance, this would be facing the existing soccer field. And then on the west facade, the music entrance for the performing arts. And then last, the bus and entry on the north side of the building, which also becomes the auxiliary gym. So just sort of an overview of the final design that's been pulled together for the project. Okay, with that, we're going to move through a lot of these slides very quickly. It's sort of an overview of the floor plans, some of the renderings taken directly from the presentation that we just went through. I would like to note, schedule-wise, we'll also be coming to you in after the holidays related to the Act 34, which will also include the updated budget, the January 6th community meeting that Dr. Curtis mentioned earlier, we're also planning for at this time. And both the renderings that you saw this evening, as well as a lot of the work, I wanted to just call out to one of our staff in the audience today, Jake Pusatera. He's actually a graduate of not only State College, but Park Forest Middle School. And so he had a little shorter drive than I did today, since he was up here visiting with his family this weekend, but he wanted to join us this evening. And he's responsible for a lot of the imagery and working with our team. Okay. So with that, so really finalizing, and as we've mentioned in some previous meetings, working with Patton Township as well as the other approval agencies related to the site, some of the exterior design, which really has hasn't changed dramatically over the last 6 to 8 months, but really just a continual refinement as we've pushed towards the completed documents for the building. Floor plans, again, sort of nuanced changes as we accommodate predominantly at this point more mechanical, electrical, plumbing, now that the educational organization of the building was fully completed and vetted with the school district on all 3 floor plans, exterior design of the building, moving around the classroom wings to the east facade, the bus entry as well as the music entrance that we showed in the rendering this evening, and then just some of the interior renderings as you move through the different sectors of the building. Just in the past, earlier this month, we did an update to the schedule. So we're moving through the land development, township approvals, which has become the critical path. Code review, I'm happy to say that we did print drawings for the code review last week, and we just got confirmation of receipt today for that. So the code review has begun for the project, and then we anticipate incorporating those comments into the final documents right before we go to bid in the coming month. We're updating cost estimates and preparing the Act 34 public meeting that we'll be bringing back to you after the holidays. And ultimately, that'll lead to bidding in the spring. And really, I'm going to sort of move on to questions that everybody may have, as a lot of what we just presented is sort of a summary of different presentations that we've been making to all of you in the past few months.
All right. I'm going to start to my left over here. Does anybody have any questions or comments about? Go ahead, Ann.
At the Patton Township Board Supervisors meeting on the 19th, there were some questions raised about codes and exits at the auditorium. And with your record of expertise, I have no doubts about any code issues, but I did want to give you the opportunity to respond in more depths to some of those questions. I think you were really eloquent. The team was really eloquent that night, but if you wanted to speak to that, the auditorium, enough exits, those kinds of things.
Yeah. I guess I could go back to the floor plan.
It looked good.
Yeah, there was a specific question. That night was more focused on the exterior and approaches. Really, we did a complete overview of the project, and one of the questions that did come up was, did we have adequate exiting from the auditorium? One gentleman's concern. We did step back after that meeting. Never hurts to have some thoughts outside of the direct team. Sometimes we become a little too focused on the small details. We do have more than enough adequate. Actually, we have in excess the exiting required for the auditorium. There are specifically 2 exits to the rear of the auditorium, one on the side, as well as ramping on 2 sides at the front of the auditorium for exiting purposes. So, and we reviewed that with our on-staff code official.
Thanks. You were, again, very compelling that night, but I wanted to give an opportunity to speak again to that for the public record. So thanks.
Go ahead, Gretchen.
I just have a curiosity question. So how come some of the seats in the auditorium are like a different color, but most of them are red? Or is that not going to be how it really is in real life?
No, that was actually very purposeful. There's been a lot of, and without going back to that specific rendering, both on the wall treatment and design in the auditorium, as well as the seating, we've been trying to, how to say this, really throughout the building, we were trying to develop what would be a park forest motif or design concept for the building, and that occurs both in the patterning of the wood paneling on the side that it sort of, it modulates in width. That also occurs on the exterior of the building. There's a modulation of the metal panels.
That's
And then
really
we're
cool.
also doing that then with the seating, just trying to have some color variation and switching from the field color is a maroon, but then bringing in the district color or gray to have some variation as well as in the seating. And those are a couple examples, but we're also trying to do that in other methods throughout the building. So it doesn't really cost anything, but just becomes a little bit more playful.
Well, it's also just really cool to realize that at that level of detail that's a lot of detail that's going into the thought, into the project. And also, like, I know that for the State High project, some of the architecture students were involved in one way or another through the architecture class. I mean, this would be like a really cool thing for those kids to be able to even just to observe for a day or something. Is that happening or anything like that planned or?
Mike?
Not on this project as of yet, but like I said, we've with Mr. Crawford's class, we're always looking for projects to help them out and then to actually carry that right through the building trades. So we'd fully expect to engage Mr. Crawford. I know he's out right now. But then also the building trades to have them, as we actually start construction, get them on site as well to see how things are progressing.
That's wonderful. That's awesome. They get to have that opportunity. So anyway, okay, thank you.
I saw Rebecca's hand, and then we'll go to Deb.
I have just a couple things. I have been on this project with you guys since it started, and so to see from the very start where we had notepads and we were coming up with ideas, this is beautiful. So thank you for all of your work and the time and the effort, the teachers and the staff that went on all of the trips to look through everything and decide it's beautiful. My two questions are, what's the capacity that you have for the auditorium?
The capacity for the auditorium is, I think it's 888, and you can't, we didn't try to do that.
No, that's pretty cool. And then the second one was, I know early on in the project, and it may have been answered before, so forgive me if I'm repeating myself. A lot of what we heard from the teachers was the amount of lighting and natural light. How did that all end up working in the classroom aspect? Like you were trying to get as many windows as you could, but then you were talking about were you going to have to do tube lighting and different. Did you end up with, like, because you said you're in mechanical and electrical now, did any of that have to get removed or changed at all?
So the one advantage we had was, or not, you try to turn a challenge into an opportunity. Obviously, at the existing middle school, there's quite a lot of classrooms with no natural daylight. We've really laid out the majority of the building that predominantly, I would say 90% or even higher of all educational spaces have natural daylight. But there are some internal at the core of how some of the technical education, sciences, some of the other spaces, just adjacencies, we did have to incorporate solar tubes or daylighting through a space. For instance, sort of a commons area is fully daylit, and then those spaces open directly onto that. So, and then we're also completing with a sustainability consultant right now, daylighting studies, and I think roughly, I don't have the numbers in front of me tonight, but we're right around the 80% mark of all square footage of classrooms is fully daylit. And not just classrooms, all educational spaces.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm. Deb, go ahead.
Thanks. I feel like one of the last times you were here, one of the things that was still getting worked out between the architecture team and our SROs was this issue of windows from the hallways into the classrooms and how high they might be, or whether, and so did that get figured out? And could you speak to any of that without compromising safety?
Yes, we did accommodate there was a lot of, I'm sort of looking at Mike because all of us were involved in those discussions. Windows are now start at 6 feet and go above. We made some adjustment to the cabinetry or the student cubbies that are out in the hallways. That had been discussed. We also looked at While we do have some glass at the door and the side light just for visibility, we then looked at the sight angles from that, so that I would say easily 30 to 40% of a classroom can fully shelter without any views to the hallways. So yes, I think at this time we've, as much as possible, we've fully met everybody's concerns, and it's been something I think we've easily had 4 or 5 meetings on this. So
Great, thank you.
All right. Jen, go ahead.
Forgive me if this has been covered already, and also I'm not sure if you're going to be able to answer my question or not, but someone hopefully can. Do we know, is there slated to be a life skills classroom at Park Forest Middle School, or will all life skills students continue to go to Mount Nittany?
At least be the
Right.
possibility. There'll be the capacity.
Okay.
I can't say for certain right off the top of my head, do you know, Jonathan, whether that's being planned for, but we have the capacity.
Okay.
It'll probably be like a curriculum question when we get a little further down. That's a good question.
There are specialized classes that are incorporated, but I would have to comment on what specific ones.
Okay.
So, and I can just finalize that. When you see it as an example up on the screen, blue is the standard classrooms, green is special education. And there was a lot of, and we're just showing one of the floors, obviously, but a substantial amount of time was spent with the director of special education and that team of how this relates to both middle schools, not just this building itself, and a combination of having that out within the building, but then also some more intensive programs that actually occurs at the upper right-hand corner of the building, and then also gives the ability for that to be accessed directly from the drop-off loop.
Yeah. The reason I asked is just because I've had some parents who have kids that are in elementary school now, but they're preparing to send them to Mount Nittany because because they're in the life skills program at the elementary level, and that's where they would typically go, but they're in the Park Forest area, so they were kind of trying to figure out their future.
A lot of discussion we also had was standardizing classrooms, whether they are special education, a typical classroom, and creating flexibility for the district. Whether we're at Park Forest or Mount Nittany, the best laid plans change the day the building opens, or even halfway through construction, and that's typical with all districts. And so we tried to embed that. So I would say really at this point, with a few years of construction, anticipate that may adjust for what the district feels educationally is the best in, say, roughly a 3-year time period from now.
Thank you so much.
Yep.
Amy or Jackie, do either of you have anything? Okay. Our student representatives, do you guys have any questions or comments? All right, very good. Well, I just wanted to say I appreciate the time you took at the Patton Township meeting, and obviously I think everybody who watched the video here is probably pretty wowed. I only had one question about, and I'll sort of frame this in terms of a parent or teacher working with a student with significant needs in a wheelchair, for instance. If they're on the 3rd floor, how would they get out? Like, what would be, I'm sure we've considered the safety, and I'm sure that's part of code now, but just sort of an assurance that how would they, in an emergency, for instance?
We have spent time of strategically where do we locate the elevator in the building for egress. We're actually doing it adjacent to the 2 3-story towers, and then that directly feeds down right at the break line between the educational wing or sector of the building from the more public sector. So it's sort of on the left side tower, right above the stair tower. So with that, and then also the ability that,
like, is there a ramp?
Well, you would that stair tower then accesses all 3 stories of the building.
Oh, okay.
So from that elevator.
So there's a way to get them out without using the elevator?
No, you would utilize the elevator in that situation.
So in the case if there is like a fire emergency or something,
I apologize, Jonathan. Just a lot of moving parts. We also have areas of rescue built at all the stair towers, and there are emergency services call buttons if needed. Trying to ramp and transition at 14 feet from floor to floor is not possible. So that's typically what we would do with emergency services, and then
Okay.
that goes through Center Region Code for approval as well for how that occurs. Oh, and you should almost, Jonathan's been very involved, so you can almost answer many of these questions. All those stair towers are also fire rated,
Okay.
so it actually sort of locks down those sectors. There's a 2-hour fire rating on a tower that really protects that zone and gives emergency services then time to access that area.
okay,
So,
I appreciate that.
okay.
All right, so if there's no other comments, all right, thank you very much.
Thanks for
So
your time.
now that we're all excited about the middle school project, we need to talk about how we're going to pay for it. So thank you, gentlemen. Mr. Brown and Mr. Vigileone and Mr. Beckett will now provide an update on the Park Forest Middle School financing process, as well as financing for the district-wide facilities master plan. And this, just a clarification, the financing update for both the Mountain Indian Elementary and the Park Forest Middle School projects.
It probably looks a little better. Good evening. I'm here with Tom Beckett from NW Financial Group, and he will be going over the presentation for the financing options for Mountain Indian Elementary and Park Forest Middle Schools.
Thanks, Joe. There we go. It's nice to be back, and it's nice to see some familiar faces and to meet some new faces. And Gretchen, it's been 10 years, I think, that I've been in front of you talking about schools and financing and everything else. So thank you for staying with it and listening to the boring part. We don't have any fly-through animations or anything else. It's all black and white. It's a very difficult thing to follow Jeff Straub. Not only because it's not as pretty, but it's expensive and it's the real deal here. So we're going to go over this tonight. We've already made quite a few early decisions about the mechanisms we're going to use to finance both Mountain Nittany Elementary and Park Forest Middle School. We are kind of coming down to the home stretch. We have the team put together in terms of executing the financing. We did that earlier this year. And we'll be ready to have money available when you get bids in hand later in the spring. So let me go over a couple things. We've gone over about 20 different scenarios at this point. Timing, number of financings, amount of the project cost financed by your capital reserve fund versus external bond financing. That last piece, that mix of debt and equity, is really the biggest component of what we need to wrestle with here. We want to maintain ample liquidity in there for projects down the road, as well as, but we want to realize that those funds are there for a reason, and that reason is for capital. So it's a balance. One of the things we're also going to try to do in maintaining that balance is to maintain and support your very, very strong AA1 credit rating. So whenever the other part of the analysis here is how quickly do you pay back the substantial amount of debt that you'll have to borrow for these two projects. So as we talked in before, the picture up here shows what your debt service looks like, excluding the referendum financing. Since the referendum financing has a separate dedicated millage, I first take a look at what you're paying out of the non-dedicated millage. And the next slide, Joe, is all of your debt service. Let's take a moment and take a look at that. As you can see, your debt service peaks right about now. And we designed this when we did the financings, starting with the 2015 referendum financing, because we knew that about now you'd be faced with a pretty significant financing for a middle school. So that drop off in cost, that annual debt service cost, allows you to fund the middle school with a minimal impact on your budgets. And that was a deliberate choice that we wrestled with 10 years ago. It doesn't seem that long. All right. So some of the facts that we're working with are Mount Nittany Elementary capital cost of $22.5 million and Park Forest capital cost of close to $130 million. That's estimated. We've gone over some of the term of art that I'm going to use, and that's included in this. And many of you who've been here a while have heard me talk about these things ad nauseum. If I go over it too quickly and you have a question, my job is actually to answer questions. So please shoot them to me, but don't shoot me. All right. So we've kind of come down to two options, and those two options are basically how big of a bond issue do you want to build, and conversely, or the other side of that coin, is how much of your capital reserve fund do you want to use. We're looking at the smaller of the two financings would be an $85 million financing. The larger of the two would be $105 million of financing. The flip side of that is you're going to use up more of your capital reserve fund with an $85 million financing. And go back for a second. Within those two options, we look at a 25-year level debt service plan, same payment every year. A 30-year level debt service plan, same payment every year for 30 years. Obviously, interest cost is over the time is going to be more for the longer financing. I think the better way to look at it is what we call a wraparound structure. And that takes advantage of that step down in annual debt service, and it layers in principal over time, and it delays principal. So it's a budgetarily a little bit more friendly, and as you'll see in the next slide, it doesn't cost you all that significantly much more in interest cost over time. And I won't go detail into this numbers, but please feel free to ask any questions of me or Joe on this stuff. But this basically lays out the sizing of each of those 6 options that we're looking at. The capital cost, that's the sizing, and the next one is the results. So we're looking at capital costs ranging from about 4.2% to 4.5%. The longer the amortization and the more delayed that principal, your capital cost is going to be a little bit higher. These are based on interest rates as of earlier this month. They will change. Hopefully they'll go down. Again, we've layered in a different color, the darker color up top, what the impact of this debt service looks like. Again, net of referendum. You can go to the next one. So this is the smaller of the two financings, right? And the wraparound structure that we talked about. So your debt service impact will be full in 2027. We actually might, Joe and I were talking about it, and given the timing of the project, that fact might change. In fact, it likely will change. We might have half of a year's debt service in 2027 and the full impact in 2028. and that's primarily due to changing when we're going to actually do the financing. So your debt service still peaks in the first couple of years, but it then stabilizes at about $15 million over the rest of the time. Okay, go to the next one. The wraparound, as you can see there, makes your debt service absolutely level after we get through these two peak tough years. So one of the things that we're always concerned about is how a significantly sized financing like this impacts your credit rating and your finances. There are metrics that we evaluate, and those metrics are the amount of cash to revenues, and the amount of fund balance to revenues, and the amount of debt service to revenues. What I'll say is that if you take all of your capital reserve fund, it's going to put pressure on your rating downward. Don't think we want to do that. However, what I will say is that this board and this community have continually over the past 10 years demonstrated a more important thing than the numbers. And the more important thing is the willingness to pay for first-class facilities and to pay for education. That overwhelms the numbers. It really does. And I've said it before, it's a tough job to be a school director because you've got to make tough decisions about people's pocketbooks. And the type of long-term planning that you guys have undertaken sets you up well to do this. We are going to try to minimize the impact of $150 million or $105 million of financing. But a lot of the decisions you've already made have allowed you to do that. And one of those decisions is maintaining strong finances so that your capital cost is absolutely the lowest it can be. The other things that we'll be talking about, there are the referendum bonds are available for a refunding. We will likely be proposing to put a refunding together at some point in the future for that. It'll end up reducing that tax rate to the community because you have to give that millage back under the school regulations. Let's go back. Where are we? Yep, next one's good. Rates are higher than they've been when you last did some financings. You had a great run from 2015 through 2020 of very low interest rates. In the grand scheme of things, they're not that high. So 4.5%. The first school district deal I did in 1988 was somewhere around 7%. It was quite a bit higher back then. So we're still in pretty good interest rate territory. And as always, you'll have call features on these bonds that will allow you to retire them early and take advantage of lower rates if they're available. All right. Any questions?
Let's start over here. Do you guys have any questions? Yeah, go ahead, Ann.
Thank you so much. On slide 16, which I guess is page 15, where you're talking about the liquidity difference between option A and B, you use the language, it's significant. And so if the district faces a downturn scenario related to like state funding pressure, is there one option, A or B, that leaves us better positioned to absorb that shock? Number one. And then I have a second follow-up.
Number one, it's always better to have bigger cushion than lower cushion. The state limits the amount of general fund surplus that you can have. You have by kind of conservative budgeting and good financial management, you managed to put a lot of money away for these capital projects. Those capital projects in an that CRF in an emergency gives you flexibility to weather some sort of significant downfall in funding. And the rating agencies look at it as just that. Cash is cash.
And so you were talking about the ratings could we reach like a low enough, I think you said it's cash to revenue ratio, that it would maybe shift Moody's rating? Like, would they see it as a manageable dip or like a credit concern? Or have we kind of, with our fiscal responsibility, established enough of a good vibe? That's not the right financial term.
I don't want to disabuse you of a good vibe. Because a lot of this, when you're talking about really strong credits, and this school district is a very, very strong credit. It's not a AAA, but then it has, by virtue of its location and the fact that it's a university town, I'm not sure it's going to get to a AAA. You have to have a lot of more community wealth, broad community wealth, to have that. So the AAAs in the area are Chester County communities. There are a couple of school districts down there. There's a couple in Montgomery County. And again, those districts have very deep, deep, deep pockets of wealth. That said, a AA1 credit, you're going to sell just a fraction of interest rate higher than a AAA. But let's talk about the good vibe. I mean, one of the things that is my responsibility as your financial advisor is to tee up that discussion with the rating agencies. And Randy and Joe and I have been teeing that up for 10 years because every time we look at the financials, and we get reviewed by the rating agencies every three years or so, we point out to them that liquidity is there for a reason. Yes, it's there in an emergency, but it is there to pay for capital facilities. And we've been communicating very deliberately over the last several years that number is going to go down.
That's helpful. Thank you.
Yeah.
All right, thanks. Go ahead, Gretchen.
Yeah, I think my question, I have two questions. I think one of them is different than Ann's. I'm still not exactly quite sure, but I think it's different. Mine's very specific. In terms of choosing A versus B, would the possibility of the rating changing be greater with A or B?
It would be greater with the smaller bond issue and the bigger capital contribution from the CRF. And that's because when you weight the numbers, liquidity matters more than the amount of debt service in your budget as a percentage of revenues. To the extent that changes, we'll make adjustments. You're going to be approving, or already have approved tonight, your fiscal 2025 audited financials, and I want to crank those numbers into our analysis package and see where you come out projected on rating wise. And that exercise is going to really inform kind of a little bit more than that. And I don't necessarily think that these are two linear options. I think that there's a mix in between if we need it that way. I think the bigger question for your deliberation is what level of debt service each year do you want to have going forward? If we get some consensus on that, we can execute fairly quickly.
Then my second question might be obsolete at this point based on the answer to my first question that you just gave, but I agree that the long-term planning that the district underwent 10 years ago has, especially paying attention to the fact that we knew that Park Forest would need to be built, and so everybody in the finance team has been very diligent about planning for that, and that is why, as you pointed out, the rates, what we pay back goes down exactly when we need to start to pick up the Park Forest project. So my question is, and you just said it's not necessarily A or B, but my question was going to be for long-term planning, and then which would be better? And I guess for Joe and Randy and Mike, what should the board now be thinking about to prepare financially for the future, just like we did 10 years ago, where we set ourselves up very well to be able to pay for the Park Forest project, what needs will be there, because the answer to those questions will also affect what the board chooses to do in terms of options A or B or anywhere in between, as you mentioned.
That's why we're undergoing the district-wide facility master plan. We've been, we had to do a facilities assessment. We're doing a facilities assessment to look at all of our projects, facilities, to understand what work we need to do in the next 10 years. That will help to map out our capital needs. We had to do a feasibility study for the specific Park Forest building to get that project completed. So your question is very valid, and that's why we've been doing what we've been doing for the last year and a half. And I believe that the results of that over the next month or so will really time up well with going out to bid with Park Forest, understanding what our projections are for this year, as Mr. Beckett said, taking our last year's financial statements and plugging those numbers in. But I appreciate all of these questions, because when we think about the bond rating, that's just as important to us. And it's driven by the balance in the capital reserve, as well as the amount of debt service that we're able to manage in our annual fund budget, general fund budget. And that's a function of a percentage of the budget, just like personnel costs and other costs that we have. And that's why we manage all of those to the level that we do.
Yeah, and I just have a comment after what you spoke of, Randy, which is just that I want to give credit where credit is due to Randy and the finance team, because this has all been on very purposeful, that we are going to be finding out the results of the district-wide facility master plan in time to be able to make informed decisions regarding financing for the project. So that doesn't always happen. And I've seen it not happen elsewhere. And the fact that it's happening, I mean, these are best practices. This is exactly what a school district should be doing to prepare financially. So it makes me proud to be a board member. So thank you.
Deb, go ahead.
Gretchen already basically asked my main question, so thank you for that, Gretchen, which was about the effect of the district-wide facility master plan. Just as a reminder for the board and for the public, how much do we currently have in the capital reserve fund? Because those numbers matter as a percentage of the total. And so like what's going to be left over as we're making our choice.
So as of June 30, 2025, there was just shy of $75 million.
Okay. So I thought we were around that. So, I mean, right now, option A would be using well over 50% of that. And so that would be of concern to me looking forward as we think about what needs we have over the next 10 years.
And we're still, I know we're months away now, only months away, but we're still many iteration possibilities away from doing this financing. Right. I'm sure that we were close to 100 different financing options when we looked at the high school project. So I'm not stuck on these two.
Right.
Right, Tom?
It's good that I like you.
Oh, boy. Yeah, Deb, I had a similar question about the capital reserve fund, so I'm glad you asked that. Any other questions this side of the table? Good, okay. Well, thank you, gentlemen. I don't, if there's no other questions. I did want to just put in a reminder here as we're kind of wrapping up discussing the Park Forest Middle project at the moment. Something that Mr. Johnson alluded to earlier in his comments was the families and community members are encouraged to attend the community forum on Park Forest Middle School project Tuesday, January 6th. So look for that, because as we're moving towards approving the final project and putting it out to bid, sort of any final comments from the community are welcome.
And if I could just add that we'll also be talking about a master plan for playgrounds results and working towards the first playground project for next summer.
Okay, great. Thank you, Randy.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you, gentlemen. Moving on, we're going to information item C, 11C, which is the math curriculum scope and sequence. We're now going to be joined by Chris Merritt and the curriculum team to talk about the math curriculum scope and sequence.
Good evening.
All right.
Our team is really excited to bring this update to you based on the last year of work with our K-12 math committee. And with me tonight are, I had to see where they're all sitting, are Jackie Saylor, Assistant Director for Curriculum, Tyler Constable, Secondary Math Coordinator, and Andrea DeCarl, our Elementary Math and Science Coordinator. And I'd like to thank them for all of the work that they have done to help with the committee in the past year, and the work they continue to do to lead this forward, as well as the many teachers and administrators who participated on the committee and within the departments as well. I would like to start by giving you an overview of our K-12 committee work and the proposed scope and sequence for high school math courses tonight. So we're only proposing the high school math courses, and I'll explain why in a moment. The scheduling for high school students begins really in January. They start selecting courses in early February. And so we need to have our high school courses updated so they're picking the accurate course if we wanted to implement next year. Some of the things that really challenged us in our committee is the lack of guest teachers. So it's very challenging to pull 51 people together for long periods of time. We did it. It was not always pretty, but we were able to pull them together and get this moving forward. So we're very excited about that. As I said, there were 51 people on the committee. We were really careful to include a wide range of roles across our district. And the math standards have not changed since the last curriculum review for math. So we really focused and honed our understanding on the mathematical standards of practice and refining and deepening our understanding of teaching mathematics. Particularly when we look at the secondary documents, to give you a sense of how far behind we have been, mainly, I would say mainly because of the pandemic, they began the math review last in 2014-15. So some of the documents that were reviewed in our curriculum audit were older documents, and it's not that they weren't accurate, but people go on and develop in their lesson plans more robust things than what was in the original written plan. An overview of the committee's work is really this was a lot of fun to do. Our steering committee met with Kevin Morrow. He's the PDE Mathematic Curriculum Lead. We really wanted to talk to him about best practices in math, any changes that might be coming on the horizon that we should keep in mind, and about any insight he had into our process. So we met with him, our steering team met with him about a year ago. We also developed a new mission and vision for teaching mathematics, which we're going to share with you tonight. We worked with IU10 to conduct an external math audit. In fact, 1 year ago, I believe, the board approved the contract for that. That happened between February and April. That took place. And we grounded our thinking by reading and discussing an article called, "Is It True That Some People Can't Do Math?" And the answer is no. But it was a really, really good article that helped challenge our thinking about what it is we need to do when we teach math. We also reviewed cohort schools programs, looking at student learning data and core resources that they use. We reviewed math faculty surveys. We reviewed the student learning data of Acadience, PSSA, Keystone, and MAP. And we are revising the scope and sequence for elementary and middle school, and we'll be bringing that to you in about a month and a half to 2 months. We just aren't quite ready for that yet. The high school is included in tonight's presentation. We also reviewed resources to understand how our vision of what we wanted for our mathematics program, how that could be supported with various resources. So we took a lot of time doing that as well. I'd like to turn this over to Andrea for the next section.
So the mission and vision, the math committee reviewed and revised the previous math and vision statement that we had. The committee was charged with creating a mission statement that described how we teach right now. And with the vision statement, they were asked to think about what we wanted our district's ultimate goal to look like. So these two statements were something that the committee reviewed and refined each meeting to help ground our work as we met together. And in our mission statement, as you can see, we have words like empowering students, confidence, perseverance, and a student's ability to apply mathematical concepts. When we were looking at the vision statement, we included rigor, resilience, understanding, and authentic. Through the discussion, the K-12 committee had about readings, standards, our assessment data, and the audit report. We were able to clearly define our mission, where we are now, and our vision, where we aspire to be. So it is in the document, in today's note. The next section is about the Intermediate Unit 10 Math Audit. On December 16th, 2024, the school board approved a contract with the Intermediate Unit 10 for an external audit of our mathematical curriculum. And you have the review as well as the appendices. And you also have a 10% summary, which was created by the math committee to sort of, we dug into it and sort of tried to pull out the important parts. So during the review, I want you to know that 305 classrooms within our district were visited. And there were a number of focus groups that met with our principals, our teachers, our secondary students, and 4 parent meetings occurred. The IU collected, as Chris mentioned, artifacts such as curriculum, district documents, and achievement data that we had collected. And between the classroom visits, the focal groups, and the data, they were able to triangulate to allow the IU, it allowed the IU to triangulate and get a better understanding of how our math instruction happens in the district. So the audit revealed that we as a district are deeply committed to cultivating strong instructional practices and nurturing inclusive, student-centered learning environments. They found our strengths to be widespread, and the areas for growth that surfaced, if addressed, could elevate the overall consistency and impact of our mathematics instruction district-wide. In other words, many of the areas of growth they recommended are practices that we already do, and that by doing it even more or even better, we could improve as a program. So for example, they said that we have powerful instructional practices in our K-12 classrooms. This included engaging students and promoting deeper understanding through active learning, collaboration, and personalized instruction. One area that they recommended was utilizing differentiated strategies more consistently. What stood out the most to the auditors was the strength of the classroom communities. They found that our teachers fostered safe, respectful, and inclusive environments where students felt empowered to take risks and engage deeply in learning. I'll pass it on.
Good evening. So I want to share with you some of the things that we've been doing with regard to professional learning. As Andrea stated in the audit, they talked quite a lot about how students are empowered. And as we have been moving through this process, we have also been working to empower teachers with information and knowledge. So beginning in fall of 2024, we sent a group of coordinators and administrators to a Solution Tree conference in Baltimore. And then shortly after that, Andrea and I had a great opportunity to attend with some others, math interventionists in our district, a presentation by Dr. Paul Ricamini at Patton. His presentation regarding retention strategies and effective instructional strategies was so impactful to us that we came back and said, we have to get this person who lives here to come and talk with our teachers. So we were very excited in October of this year to have Dr. Ricamini present for a full day of professional development around retention strategies, cognitive processes, of learning, to our entire, anyone who touches math in the district was at this presentation. In addition, we've been able to provide some follow-up opportunities for teachers to plan and implement and use those strategies. Teachers have attended a variety of programs through the Central Intermediate Unit, and we will continue to provide professional learning as we move forward, and in particular, as we are thinking about the resources that we are going to adopt, we have plans to provide professional learning to teachers in all of those areas. Some of our key takeaways from the committee. So Andrea was able to share some of the key takeaways from the audit. From the committee, there were several important takeaways. One was that teachers recognized the importance of focusing on a variety of mathematical skills. Students need to understand fluency. They need to be able to get to the facts quickly. They need to be able to apply those mathematical concepts and procedures in a variety of circumstances, and recognizing as well the importance of that, like factual knowledge. Do students know their facts? Can they apply it? And in what circumstances? Those takeaways I also want to mention that are in the report were K-12. So as teachers were thinking about this, these were the things that we identified as being important across all grade levels. We want students to be fluent. We want them to find ways to experience success in math. One of the quotes that we came away with was, "We cannot let it pass when a student says, I'm just not good at math." So looking at ways that we can continue to empower teachers and students so that every student has a successful math experience. Thank you.
Hello, everyone. It's my pleasure to present tonight the culmination of our work in the high school scope and sequence portion. So we'll be requesting, as Chris said, board approval for the high school scope and sequence at the board meeting on January 12th. As you can see in the memo, the reason we're bringing the high school scope and sequence separately at this time so we can make necessary changes to the course catalog so we can have time for high school registration in early February. We're continuing work on the scope and sequence in elementary and middle school and hope to bring that in February as well. As you look at the scope and sequence document that was linked in the memo, you'll find that the elementary and middle school portions were crossed out in red font. Nothing scary there, just merely indicates that those portions of the document are yet to be revised and are not a part of what we're seeking approval for at this time, high school only at this time. Since our last scope and sequence revision, as Chris said, state standards in math have not changed, so the scope and sequence that you see for high school that we're presenting largely represents only minor changes. The biggest changes you're going to see, frankly, are with the AP courses. Since the last time that our scope and sequence was approved, all of our AP math courses, the course frameworks are changed, and so we updated the scope and sequence to reflect the new frameworks for those AP courses. We also have refreshed some of the course descriptions to better reflect the content and experience of our high school courses. This work is the result of months of collaboration of our high school teachers. During this process, our teachers engaged in horizontal and vertical conversations. What I mean by that is in the horizontal conversations, teachers collaborate with other teachers who teach similar courses to them to ensure that students' needs were being met in every one of our courses. And then in those vertical conversations, teachers meet with teachers of courses before and after theirs to ensure that students would have opportunities to learn the skills and concepts needed for success in future math courses. As a result of these conversations, we decided to make a few minor adjustments, as you can see in the memo, to some course names, course descriptions, units, and standards. We've also engaged in the process, as Chris mentioned, of reviewing core resources to support the math program. We'll present those requests at a later time as well. Once you approve the scope and sequence, as far as next steps, our teams of teachers will begin the next phase of the process by writing and revising curriculum documents with the hopes of implementation starting in the fall of 2026. I'll just say it's been a privilege to work alongside such a dedicated team of teachers and school leaders as well through this process, and we're thrilled to present the results of our work to you tonight.
Excellent. Thank you. All right. I'll start over here. Any questions about the math review? Yeah, go ahead, Jen.
So I had a question about the scope and sequence of the high school courses. So I noticed that there were courses that exist at the high school that aren't on the scope and sequence. And I wanted to know why that was, or if there is a plan to put them on there, like some of the seminar, currently, I believe they're called seminars. So yeah, that was my first question.
So our seminar courses, like for pre-algebra, for example, we are putting the pre-algebra in the course guide. We just didn't label it as a seminar course.
Okay. And are there any plans to have any other kinds of courses that, specifically ones that multilingual learners would be engaging in, or some of the CTC students? Is pre-algebra the only other option, or are there others?
There are some other options as well, yes.
Okay.
There are.
Okay, thanks, Jen. Questions from you guys?
Thanks so much for this complicated work. Even though the standards haven't changed, I know it's not exactly a small endeavor. I guess I have a couple more high-level questions. And so I guess what stood out to me from the IU report were two major concerns that I think are valid and concern me. And that would be regarding differentiation, as you mentioned, and also ELL and IEP students and accessibility of content for them. And that was certainly K-12. So some of these questions are relevant K-12, but I have some specific questions about high school as well. So one of my questions is, ironically, this evening on our agenda is also some of our policies regarding curriculum, one of them being guides to planned instruction, as well as curriculum. And so I guess the question I ask is, like, how much in our scope and sequence, and I know there's further, we talk about the pyramid, there are further documents that go below that that are provided for teachers, resources, other alternative suggestions of methods. So do we include techniques of differentiation in that? If so, what do we term it? And if we do, should we call that out in our policy that we also include specifically tools for differentiation for teachers? Because that's not language that we currently have in that policy I noted this evening, which was so conveniently correlated on this agenda.
So that's a lot of questions. There's a lot of topics. So I'll start with the idea that what the board approves is the tip of the iceberg. It's the iceberg theory. All of the big stuff that happens are in our curriculum documents, and that is fleshed out after we get the okay that, yes, these are the courses, yes, this looks good, the standards look good. Then we spend a very large amount of time articulating all of those things within our documents. And I would say the math department is probably some of the best teachers at when it comes to formative assessment and checking for understanding. So I think that that is spelled out in our curriculum document. But what they looked at, the documents they looked at, you have to remember, were from 2015. So a lot of the work that has happened, people didn't go back and add to the curriculum documents all the time. In some cases they would have, but not in all of them. That was that comment was made. I caught that comment specifically with some of our written curriculum, which I expected. I did expect that. It wasn't unexpected. And not that they didn't see that in the in-person visits. I'm not saying that. But yes, so those things are articulated in our curriculum documents.
Okay, so that was just a question I don't know. Like, I know we provide resources and other things, but I didn't know whether we specifically in the lower level documents spell out ways to differentiate. So that's helpful to know. I guess when I looked through the appendix, there did seem to be comments about observations also not seeing some levels of differentiation, and particularly talking about those other students like ELL and IEP students. I do want to say I appreciated it was very clear. There was one team that did a particular grade level, I can't remember if it was third or fourth, that also used the word neurodivergent. And I know you hear me talk about it all the time, but I'm going to express appreciation for their recognition, because not all students who need differentiation necessarily have an IEP. Some of them fall into other categories that may or may not be identified. And it's important that they receive that kind of differentiation as well. So that's great. I'm glad to hear that it's actually stuff that we put in the documents, and that'll be relevant to my comments later in the policy section. I do have one question specifically about secondary, and I was surprised this wasn't mentioned further by the IU. So as board members and as a parent of
two graduating seniors. I'm very familiar with the concept of flipped classroom and that it's frequently used, particularly in secondary and at the high school. I hear varying reports of it's universal, it's not universal. I never know how to answer that for parents. But there wasn't a lot of comments in their evaluation about the use for that, either a pro or a con. I know there was one section I read that did mention that parents in the focus groups were interested in being able to see some of those things to help their students at home, which I totally get. It makes a lot of sense. And I guess it raises the question to me. They also discussed a little bit about recommending more inquiry-based learning, a little more cooperative work. This was specifically at the secondary level. They called that out. And so the question I have, and I don't not necessarily asking for a specific example, but the high ideal question is, how much are we considering is a flipped classroom playing a role in our ability to provide those kinds of experiences for students? So I just think it's something to talk about more and understand, especially as we're facing more and more issues with technology, and that's not teachers' fault. As we try to provide safeguards for students and their access to other resources and things like that, sometimes our ability to say, well, you could go check out this tutorial or whatever, sometimes they're not able to access those things in the way we would like to be able to make it easy for them. And so as we look for where those bottlenecks are, how do we make sure that we're removing those barriers as much as we can? So yeah, those are my comments more than a little bit of questions, but thanks.
I think all good thoughts. And I'm wondering if maybe some of those questions might be good for like a CCL meeting, for instance, if we could bring it there. Just those of you who are on CCL, if you're interested in that kind of thing. Let me turn over here. Do we have any questions or comments from this side of the table? Go ahead, Jesse.
Yeah, this may be also more appropriate for a CCL meeting, but I'd like to pick up a little bit on the point of flipped classrooms. About how much interaction is there with the instructor in a typical flipped classroom in the high school?
Do you want to take that one?
The short answer is a lot. Our teachers do an excellent job of implementing those that use the flipped classroom model. I would say I actually kind of hesitate to use it, that term sometimes, just because I think that so much of it is used it's typically very short videos just to kind of introduce the topic at the beginning of the following class. The teachers do an excellent job of having warm-ups to kind of get students back into the learning. They provide direct instruction for the students as well. So I think sometimes that the flipped classroom idea can, or at least, let me pause there. I think that there can be an assumption that there's not a lot of interaction with the teacher, and I wholeheartedly disagree with that.
So there is this interaction where they're solving problems.
Absolutely.
And the teachers are guiding them. And
100%.
Yeah.
Yep.
Go ahead, Ann.
Thank you so much for the work, and thank you so much for providing all the data. I loved looking through it, and I'm really glad you included that article, and so I'm just really grateful for your work. I wanted to follow up on Amy's question about differentiation, so I really appreciate your note that they got documents that were a little older. And so I think that this might answer my question as well, because on the appendix, when you get to the algebra section, I put it in a Google Doc, so it's like page 35 on my section. But what they talk about in addition to differentiation is technology and graphing. And I know that you guys are using Desmos all the time. And so I was a little confused about that. So that answers that question. But I wanted to also ask, in that section of recommendations or growth opportunities, they talk about no mention of strategies to support ELL students. And so I'm assuming that that's just the subsequent, the previous documents. Is that correct?
Correct.
Okay, that's what I thought. The other aspect, I have two other kind of sub questions. They also later on recommend that our trainings incorporate for differentiated support, universal design, UDL learning. And so I wondered, do you have the professional development you need for that kind of learning system?
So we do. English and social studies made that one of their pathways in the past. So they had a facilitator come and present on UDL. Math has not done that yet. So no.
I just, that might be an opportunity that would give us a sense of differentiating.
Yeah.
And, but I will defer to the experts.
Into the learning.
Exactly, for sure.
Absolutely.
I want to defer to you all.
We do struggle with not having a tremendous amount of in-service time. It may seem like on a calendar we do, but we really do not. But we try to maximize every minute that we have to make sure that we can get teachers what they need.
Yeah, and it's not a imperative. It's more of an ask. Like I saw them, they talked about differentiation, wanted to know, ways that the board could support this work. And then that gets to my final question. Mr. Constable mentioned bringing up resources later on, and one of the best parts of my life history was being a para in a math class in Mount Nittany Middle School. And so I know that they mentioned in the appendix how that can be helpful. But I did want to know, are there other resources? I think I'd talked to you previously, or maybe it was Danielle Ambrose, about the high school faces real needs in the study hall section for math. So are you all getting the resources? I know we're talking about curriculum, but I did also want to just ask briefly about, resources, for some kind of the homework help. I forgot what it's called now, but it's that one place where everyone goes to get homework help. And it was definitely a lot of needs for math homework. So I wanted to ask
They're
about
called
that.
the centers now?
Yes, that's it. Thank you.
And so we have teachers in the centers that help students
And
with
do you
academic
have,
support.
when I was visiting, the ratio of math support was heavy.
Yes.
And so if we need differentiation, not just in the classrooms, but also if you need support for those students who are struggling and trying to get help, I just would like to know.
Okay.
Yeah.
I will have to check in with the high school. I wouldn't want to just give an answer, but I think that they could always use more math teachers in the centers because they're trying to do a lot of individualized help, and it's hard to do that if the numbers are high. So that is a challenge, but it's great that we have that resource.
One of the things that we're talked about, me and Chris, was revisiting Adlai Stevenson, a school district where we coined the centers from, and going back there to visit to see their progress. A number of our coordinators are new and haven't seen that in full, all of its fullness. And so I think that's something that we're looking into in the upcoming years.
Probably next year. The only date that worked for us this year was February, based on our dates and testing and all of that. And February in Chicago is not great to fly there and back in record speed. So we're probably going to hold off till next year. But yeah, they're also great they're a premier, one of the premier high schools in our country. So we learn a lot by going there and seeing their leadership.
This is for future, just to, when we were looking at resources, which again we'll bring forward in February, differentiation tools was definitely something that we were looking at as part of that process. And at elementary, we went back to our top 2 resources and specifically said, show us where differentiation is within your program and how we can access it. So there'll be some future conversations about that, but that was definitely something that we took away from the audit and we included as part of that process.
Can I just share, I'm going to brag a little bit. I'm going to brag on the math department a lot, actually. When we pull up a scatter plot of for Keystone for Algebra 1, we are number 2 in the state. We are number 2 in the state. So the scope and sequence we brought to you tonight is not like massively different. It's not super wildly exciting to look at because it's really grounded in what we're doing that seems to be working well for our students. So I just have to share that for growth and achievement, number 2. So.
Okay. Yeah, go ahead, Deb.
I just had a really quick question on the scope and sequence, the advanced topics in math. I feel like there was at least 1 year, because I think my kid took it, where there were enough advanced kids that there was like advanced topics in math 2. So does the scope and sequence still allow for that flexibility if we have, a critical mass of kids who have been advanced enough that they're like, I'm kind of done. I don't have any more math classes to take, but I want to.
Yeah. So
that they could take it again, but that they'd be doing something different.
They'd be doing something different, sure.
Exactly. Okay, so that's sort of that flexibility is built in, even though it's only sort of listed once.
I'm not aware that we've done that again. Are you?
In the past, that second, it was through Penn State. It was through a collaboration with Penn State.
Yeah.
That students who had taken advanced topics in math were able to take. We even had a Penn State professor come on the campus and teach the course that way, or
Right.
He would video in to the students. But that's no longer a course that we offer. But that was officially offered through Penn State.
Okay, so we don't have that need anymore. We don't, because it was my impression that we still have a significant number of students who are going through a pretty advanced
So we have
schedule of courses.
so many advanced and AP classes in our high school. They can find things that they want to do. But if they wanted to take advanced topics more than once, I don't see a reason why they couldn't do that if they're, once they've kind of tapped out of our math. Some students do enroll at Penn State and do an enrollment there because they've taken all of the courses that we have to offer.
Okay, thanks.
Thanks, Deb. Oh, yeah, go ahead.
I had a question specifically for like the high school section, and looking at like how the IB program and IB mathematics and applications and interpretations is going away. Has there been any like discussion or implementation of some unique values of that program into the other courses, or has that been reflected in the scope and sequence for the next year? And like specifically for like a thing like a internal assessment research paper that we're doing right now, like I think that's a unique part. Has that been thought of? Has that been considered to be implemented in other courses?
So IB is a very unique and different kind of math, as you know, if you were in the IB program, and we can take pieces of that to incorporate different places. I know that statistics, I think, still writes a paper. So we have those elements built into some other courses, but not an exact, like a lift from IB, and we're going to do that exact thing in this other course. Mm-hmm.
That was actually my question. Good one, Ryan. Jackie, go ahead.
Yeah, so I just wanted to say I really appreciate the energy you all came with. It's been a while since I taught geometry, but I think your scope and sequence looks really good. And also, as someone who teaches a pretty math-intensive course at Penn State, I just want to say when I have state high students, like, they're killing it. So good job. Keep up the good work.
Thank you.
All right. Yeah, go ahead, Jen.
I had one more question about the high school courses. Are the high school courses in the scope and sequence for Delta students as well, or do they have other options?
They have some options at Delta that they can take math within Delta, depending on what they want to take. If it might be advanced topics, I'm not sure that they're able to offer that at Delta, so they would come across the street to take it at the high school.
Yeah, Kai, go ahead.
I can actually answer this one a little.
Oh, good.
So we can go across the street to take it at State High, but we also have an option called an independent contract where we can take specific courses outside of school and get school credit for them. For example, right now I have a friend taking a course at a university online. It's a math course, and she's getting credit for that.
Is there a reason that we shouldn't include that kind of thing in the scope and sequence? I just feel like it should be if you're looking at that as all of your options, I mean, unless the Delta students get a different handbook scope and sequence,
They
it
do.
seems like you would want.
Yeah.
Okay, they do?
They do. Yep.
Okay, thank you. And also thank you for all of your work. I absolutely love your mission and vision statements because I absolutely love math, and my children don't always feel the same, but I hear out of my 10-year-old's mouth that she can do hard things and she can be a math learner, and I know that those words are coming from her teacher. So thank you so much.
Okay. Any more from over here? And actually, thank you, because maybe your 10-year-old can talk to my 10-year-old because she needs that. I just wanted to just sort of a passing comment. It's really interesting to me because I was one of those students, and my kids are to some degree that really struggled with math. And I think the way you have laid it out here is really interesting and represents the fact that, the actual math itself doesn't change, but it's really, some of it is about how it's presented and the psychology behind how do we get kids to believe in themselves. And I think you've really kind of taken that to heart in the way you've done this, and I really appreciate that. All right.
I had
Amy,
one
sorry.
more
Go
thing.
ahead.
That's okay. You hadn't spoken yet. I just wanted to circle back to one or two things and also express a little more thanks. But one being, I just want to make this statement that a flipped classroom is not ideal for all students. And while some teachers take a wonderful advantage of it, that isn't always every student's experience of it. And I can speak to that on a personal level. Particularly, again, for neurodivergent learners, it can be really challenging. Also, just for kids that are highly introverted or highly reluctant to engage with an adult that maybe they don't feel highly connected to. And so when the instruction provided, I don't want to say is minimal because I'm not trying to minimize how much they do, but I know the main part of the instruction is provided potentially ahead of time. Teacher goes over and then engages with students working on problems. And sometimes some students just aren't the ones to ask for that help. They may not be noticed. There can be a disconnect for a significant number of students. And I think it's worth recognizing and being honest about and talking about it. And that brings me, I guess, to the point, I did notice that the focus groups, unfortunately, there were not a lot of high school students that engaged in the focus groups. And I would actually really strongly suggest that before you close out this endeavor, that you go sit down at the end of this year in some senior math classes and corner some students and ask them to talk to you. Because I think you will get some really valuable information, such as some of the allusions of what I've just made. I think you'll also hear some, too, from those students about what the IU recognized was a lack of connection to real-world experiences. That's certainly a literal comment that happened in my kitchen last week. So I do think that you could get some really valuable information, and they're not going to come to the focus group, but you can corner them before they leave. And I think the seniors in particular are going to be the most honest with you because they don't have anything to lose when they leave, and they're going to be pretty honest about what they experience. So I think for the benefit of those small number of learners, I agree with you, Chris. It's a phenomenal program. We're doing an amazing job. Our teachers are amazing. But our job is always to try and capture those couple kids that are struggling. And I think those are some little ways we might be able to get at those tools. So that's why I'm circling back to be a pain in your butt again. But I am really appreciative of all those things. The one other comment I did, though, want to make about differentiation, it's just kind of something for us to always be aware of. To Debbie's point about accelerated students, I think we have had a long-standing history since I moved here over 15 years ago that math students just go straight to the next level and they run and jump ahead. And that's not always what they need. And I think that's why I talked and harped so much about differentiation tonight, because I think that is something those kids actually need. They don't always need faster. They don't always need farther. Sometimes they need deeper. Mm-hmm. And I think that this is an opportunity for us to think harder and more about that. And how do we do that when we're differentiating? Because I saw their comments weren't just about struggling students. Many times in the IU's comments, it was about accelerated or gifted learners. So, but again, you're right. We're doing great. We have great teachers. It's wonderful. And I say all these things just to want us to keep being better. So thanks very much.
And those are kinds of things that are built into our later documents. Unfortunately, you don't get to see those because those are part of the.
It took long enough to read the ones you gave us.
The bottom of the iceberg. But yeah, those are all instructional strategy choices that and frameworks for teaching that we can talk about with our teachers. So thank you for sharing that.
I agree with a lot of what Amy had to say on that, so thank you for those comments. Did you have anything, Rebecca? Anybody else? All right, thank you all. Board, I'm going to suggest that we take a 5-minute break for my own sake, so we will take a 5-minute recess and be right back. All right. And we're back. I'm going to call back to order the December 15, 2025 meeting of the State College Board of School Directors. We are going to continue our information reports. So thank you to the math curriculum scope folks. Ms. Simpson and Ms. Merritt are here to talk to us about several policy updates.
We also have Mr. Crispo online if there's
Okay.
any questions about the athletic policy.
Excellent, all right.
Thank you very much, and good evening, everyone. We have 3 policies under curriculum tonight, and then the interscholastic athletic ones. So the first one is 105 curriculum, and PSBA suggested major revisions to enhance clarity and better align with the curriculum in accordance with Chapter 4 regulations and other applicable laws and regulations. And the purpose section, if you look at it, has been edited for style and just to condense some language. The authority section has been heavily revised with the intent to enhance some clarity on that. And then a section, a special instructions observation section has been added to this policy.
Any questions about this policy, comments? Ann, did you have something?
Yeah, we're on 105, right?
Yep.
Yeah. So for a second I got a confusion. So I just wanted to provide context because I had put a question on there about adding something related to civics education, and so that's why you see 11, civics education shall be embedded with the curriculum development efforts. Given the emphasis on democracy and deliberation in Delta, that was one way to acknowledge that. I also think, given that Delta's also been very, I think they won the governor's gold seal last year, but even more generally, civics education is significant in terms of establishing, once you have a habit of voting, you vote more. And so that was just a way to underscore that. I think in our, it's not the strategic plan, comprehensive plan, it's listed under students as one, civics is listed as one of the key values. And so I just raised that for consideration. I'm one of 9, but just thought I'd put that out there for folks. So that's the context for that.
Okay, thank you, Ann. Any other comments, questions about this policy? Over here? All right, if we're good to move on. All right.
Okay, the next policy is 106, and it is called Guides for Planned Instructions, and it is a revision of the policy that was adopted in 2001. Information regarding an administrative review has been added to this policy. You'll see that paragraph at the bottom.
Okay. Pretty straightforward. Any questions, comments about 106? Go ahead.
Yeah, so this goes to my point of my question during the curriculum cycle one is just, I think as we talk about things like differentiation so much more, and we're talking about it more with parents, I think it's worth considering, we could flesh out perhaps number 3 when it says, I don't know if it's activities, I don't know where to put it. It could be suggested activities designed to achieve the objectives, including methods like accessibility and differentiation for different learners, or like you could put a clause there that's like including these kind of ideas. I just think it might be helpful. I always try to look at policy both for our staff and our students, but also for our parents and families and community when they read them, and have it be accessible and explanatory in some degree. And since we're talking about the importance of that within curriculum, it seems like it would be a nice add, so I would suggest considering that.
I would suggest it go under number 4.
Okay.
To say suggested methods of instruction, including differentiated strategies or differentiation. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, you're right. I didn't decide where to think about where to put it before tonight, so I'm just quick scanning. I think that's exactly the right place to put it. So.
All right, thanks, Amy.
Yep.
Any other questions, comments about 106?
Do we want to just say that there is also a 107 that is going to be coming at a later date? And they're kind of like a box set. And so 107 will be coming later before we just so you all know that.
Okay.
Yeah, did you
No,
want?
it's a helpful reminder because when I saw the textbooks one and I was like, wait, what about the whole part about reviewing for parents? And I had to go back and look, and that's 105.1, which is stupid numbering. You would think it would come at the end of all those things, but anyway, it's in there, that whole how long we have to hold things for parents and all those things.
And so I just wanted to kind of make sure everyone knows, and thanks to Deb for asking that question that made me kind of look through the policy inventory and double check with Jeannie. So we're all, yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
So do we want to bring those two policies back together when we vote on them? Or are they going to come at the same time?
107?
107's coming, I'm going
It's
to
coming
defer
up.
to Chris. And
Probably in the next meeting or a very near meeting.
Yeah.
January.
Probably not. I don't know that it's tomorrow, but maybe February.
Yeah.
Okay. So we can just remind folks that this was a box set, and you can kind of do a little LP listen.
The box set, all right.
Okay, so if everyone's in agreement, we can make the change that Amy suggested to that number 4? Okay. Okay, then the next one is 108, adoption of textbooks, and that policy is also a revision with heavily revision from PSBA. Definition has been revised for clarity, noting that the new definition still includes e-books, so that piece was still retained in this policy. Language was added to the delegation of responsibility, stating that the superintendent or designee shall select textbooks. Also in that section, the superintendent or designee establishes procedures for reviewing, evaluating, and also selecting the textbooks.
Pretty straightforward.
Do we have any questions on that policy?
Deb, do you want to, like in policy, you talked about how the adoption of textbooks works for Delta, which I think, do you want to post that again, or should we bring that up to folks?
I mean, I just asked the question of, do we approve the textbooks for Delta as well? And the answer was yes, to our
Yes,
knowledge.
when they have a textbook.
Exactly, but a lot of times they don't use an official textbook. Yeah. So.
Yeah, I just thought it was useful to say out loud to everyone about that we are kind of thinking about how Delta functions and how we respect their functioning, but also maintain the norms. Great.
There are some courses that are also taught within other schools, middle school and high school, like biology is one of them, for example. They would have access to the same resource that's you approved for the course. But then they have their own unique courses too. And they tend, most of the time, not to use textbooks because their courses do change, here and there. So,
cool. Yeah. Thanks. I appreciate that PSBA updated this policy because I don't think in the past we've had that definition, or maybe it was, but the primary source piece, because I think in this day and age where there's a lot of questions about the resources we use and things like that, and the approval for textbooks has that unique, approval process for parent review. I think it's good that they define it really clearly, so that's helpful.
All right. Okay.
Any other questions?
So we move on to athletics.
And the last policy today is 123, interscholastic athletics. And this is a revision consistent with the PIAA bylaws. PSBA has provided language for a new section for name, image, and likeness, the NIL, consistent with the PIAA bylaws. In the reporting section, there's minor editorial changes to indicate the timelines established by PDE rather than providing specific dates in there.
Okay.
So those were the changes that were made to this policy. Yes, Amy.
So Lauren, are you there?
Yes, I am. Good evening, everyone.
Good evening. Thanks for coming. I do have a question about, because I saw in the beginning the reference to club sports, which I appreciate that it was up front at the beginning, that policy 123.1 club sports addresses participation there. But I guess my question was about the NIL piece. While I don't know, while I personally, love a hockey player in our district as my own kid, I don't know that a ton of them are necessarily going to get NIL deals. But in theory, if we did have a student in a club sport that was offered an NIL deal that may go on to play collegiate athletics, wouldn't this reporting requirement apply to them? And do we, I know we kind of spell it out with PIAA, but I would think it would apply to them if they were going to go on to be a collegiate athlete as well, no?
Dr. Bader, my take is that it would apply to all students,
That's what I
regardless
thought.
of PIAA status or club status. The one part about NIL that I think I and other athletic administrators appreciate is that the PIAA has been crystal clear from the outset about what can happen and what cannot happen, more importantly. And they have drawn a very clear line of delineation between high school administration and any potential NIL deals that can take place for any students. For instance, they cannot wear our marks. They cannot take place on the school grounds or at any of our facilities. They cannot mention any portion of the district. And in addition to that, employees, Dr. Bader, can also not participate in facilitating any of that. So again, I think there's a very clear line of delineation. And my take is that it applies to all students, whether it's a club sport or PIAA sport.
Okay, so that's helpful. That's what I would have assumed too. And I guess my concern then is that on cursory reading of these parts of the policy, it wasn't clear to me that any student participating in any sport, it kind of, because we emphasize those words PIAA so often, even though you're right, the phrasing of it says students and their parents are responsible for following the rules set by PIAA. But I think there's this inherent assumption that it only applies if you're a PIAA athlete. And especially when we have that clause earlier that's relevant to the rest of the policy about club sports are covered in this other policy. Mm-hmm. I just think it might be worth being clear in the NIL section that students and parents and guardians of any athletes have to follow, I don't know, because they're not PIAA students that have to follow the rules, but they still have to follow the NIL rules.
Yeah, I think if you're going to add this piece, you need to add it in the club sports policy.
Okay,
and not this policy. And
that was
you
my
could
one.
do what you need to do it. So you would have to revisit that policy.
That was my other thought as a possibility. Yes, so we probably need to amend it in that section as well.
Okay.
I knew it needed to be somewhere somehow. Thanks.
Okay.
All right. But I would imagine if this is just the only add to the club sports policy and the board all tonight is agreeable, you could bring those together for approval together so that you don't have to go through multiple iterations, assuming all this language is okay and we're just adding it to that policy just for expediency. I would suggest that unless somebody's opposed and concerned.
Does anybody have a concern with that?
Yeah.
So
Just
that
to
would
knock
be
it out.
that would be the 123.1.
Yeah.
Okay. Yep.
Don't you think?
Yes.
I agree.
I think that makes great sense.
Lauren, just make sure.
Oh, yeah.
Just make sure you inform the club sports teams of the change in the policy.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Thank you, Mr. Johnson.
Thanks, Lauren.
Yep. Thank you, Dr. Bader.
And this was, if I could just ask Lauren, I think I brought this up during the policy committee, but if you could just speak to, I had a concern about athletes needing some sort of guidance and not necessarily falling prey to people with bad intentions of using their name, image, and likeness or signing them to deals that put them at risk. Do we offer that kind of guidance to them? It may not be relevant to this specific policy, but.
Well, I think it's absolutely critical. I think one thing we're trying to do, Mr. Miller, is incorporate that into some preseason parent meetings when our coaches meet with their student athletes. That is one touch point when we can have a captive audience and at least broach the topic with them and cover some of the do's and don'ts and some of the pitfalls.
Okay.
I will say that NIL is largely relevant to the collegiate arena, and there are only a handful of NIL deals that I even know of within the state of Pennsylvania. But that said, your point is valid and a good one in that we need to educate not just our students, but their families and parents as well as to what this can look like, what it cannot look like, and where they could run into some trouble. So I think that's one area where we could start to cover some of those topics and share some of that information. We may also look for some development opportunities where we can present, I wouldn't say a seminar, but a presentation to families who are interested in learning more about it. Again, we can't help facilitate any of it for them, well, we can certainly talk about it with them and with some of the experts from the collegiate level and right down the road, for that matter, that we have at Penn State. So I do think we're trying to explore new ways to visit that information and share it with families in a timely manner and before they can even enter into any of those opportunities.
Okay, thank you. Did you have another?
Yeah, just if I don't know if as of yet, Lauren, there's any independent like advocacy groups or nonprofits or whatever that work to educate students about those things, but that might be a reference that could be in the handbook as well, or if that comes along down the line, if there's sometimes, with these kind of situations, there's some kind of group out there that's working to kind of get that information out there, but it may not exist as yet.
Absolutely. That's a great idea. And what I know for sure is that what we see of NIL today will probably not be what it looks like 2 or 3 or 4 or 5 years down the road. So
or
I think we will
months.
try to stay up with the changing times and make sure we always remain informed as to what it looks like at that current moment.
Okay. Yeah, and I think one other concern I had about it, not just NIL, but athletes themselves getting representation or having, I've sort of heard stories nationally about high-profile athletes having people who are sort of handling these processes for them and giving them bad advice, and I don't want to see any of our kids fall victim to that kind of, that activity.
Agree wholeheartedly. And again, I think that's, to your point, I think the opportunity to visit with families early in the process is probably the best way to mitigate some of those risks.
Okay. Yeah, thank you. Other comments this side? Over here? All right. We good policy-wise? All right. Well, thank you for
Thank
joining
you.
us.
Thank you, Chris and Lauren. And we have a policy committee meeting tomorrow at 10:30 here.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Simpson and Ms. Merritt and Lauren. So at this time, we'll move on to information item 11E. We'll be joined by Mr. Brown, and we'll get an update from Dr. Barlow and Ms. Huff about just a brief update about the power purchase agreement.
So you've been provided with a memo. I'll just summarize very briefly that the developer had approached our consultant about some concerns he had about the economics of the deal. And so there are requirements in the agreement that need to be followed, and they have been requested. A meeting did occur on December 3rd of the Center County Solar Group, and direction was given to continue to receive information on our behalf. The consultant is not negotiating per se, but is just receiving information from the developer, and we are still awaiting that additional information, and we'll provide that at a future time once it's been received.
Okay.
Is that
Jesse, do you have anything to add?
No, I don't think we're ready to act on any of this yet at this point.
All right. Jackie, did you want to add anything? Okay. Yeah, and I think it's accurate, Mr. Brown. We're expecting other entities, other partners in this are probably having a similar conversation. So I appreciate all your work on that. Any other questions about this? Okay. Then we will move on to the final information item on our agenda for this evening. Our final update is a proposal for the creation of a compensation committee. Dr. Etter, Ms. Simpson, and Ms. Brown will be here to join us to provide information. I'd like to start, perhaps offer the floor to Deb Anderson or Amy Bader, since the two of you have kind of worked on this before, or if we could also start with Mr. Etter reviewing the ideas behind this particular compensation committee. So if you have a...
Go ahead.
There you go.
I will go.
Okay.
We have a number of different employment groups, 7 to be specific, in the district that do not have individual contracts or are not represented through a collective bargaining agreement. And the HR department and the business department, or the finance department, I think is what it's called, have a process whereby they come up with compensation salary and other benefits for these particular groups. We all thought it was, and continue to think that it's a good process, but through the proposal that is before you tonight, we're looking at adding board involvement to that. So it will be routed through issues, for example, the salary, starting salary for the new Park Forest Middle School principal, something like that, as a more recent example, would be routed through that committee. The recommendation from the committee would then go on to Mr. Johnson's desk and then would come back to this board, the full board, for action. In addition to that, we have some other situations where we've been asked to look at generally salary and other compensation issues, and this committee would look into those things. For example, annually in May, in time for action so that it could be in place by July 1st, the beginning of the next fiscal year, the committee would look at the overall salaries and compensation packages for these groups, make determinations if we need to renew the PSBA salary survey that we do from time to time, and other things of that nature. We think that the committee, with the two individuals representing the business office and HR, my office, and two board members, is basically a broadly based committee that will serve the needs appropriately. But when there are situations, for example, the Park Forest Middle School principal, Dr. Bucher, would be brought in. When we would have a new elementary school principal, Mrs. Yoder would be brought in, and things of that nature. So if there's a need for particular expertise or input on a specific position, that's generally the way it would operate.
Okay. All right, thank you. Any?
I guess I would just add that when Dr. Etter, made this suggestion, I looked really quickly at some PSBA documents. PSBA has, some essentials of a whole variety of things, but essentials of a board committee's document to see, well, what do they say about this type of a committee? And it was something like 66% of school districts in the state of Pennsylvania have some sort of committee relating to personnel and or compensation. Sometimes the charge is even broader. I think personally I like the focus charge. That seems to make sense for our district. We didn't get very far before the change in leadership, so that's really been my involvement. We didn't have any meetings to discuss it, so this is really our first opportunity to discuss. I guess my biggest question, given the proposal, is in my mind, I assumed that the superintendent would be sort of a committee member. So I'm curious how the current process works with the superintendent versus this suggested new process. And part of my thinking is when we do the Act 93 agreement, for example, that's a meet and greet, and the superintendent is very involved in that process. Mm-hmm. And when the board does individual contracts with cabinet members, the superintendent is very involved in that process. So in all of my experiences in doing anything like this, the superintendent has been very involved in the process. So it seems weird to me to not have it, but maybe it's always been the case that the superintendent comes at the end. I don't know. So that's my main question. Thanks.
Do you want to speak to that, CJ? Okay.
It still works in a similar format. Randy and Michelle would work up a number based on the calculations of previous employees, administrators, and then bring that number to me, and then explain the rationale for it. And then I would be able to offer input or make a decision on that. So it would work in the same format. It's just involving more people in the initial conversations. The only thing I think I should probably be involved in is for the PSBA kind of annual review. I think I should probably be a part of that part. But as far as the recommendations coming in for administrators, I think that would work without a problem.
So I think in that case, he would likely serve as one of those as-needed members, depending on what the nature of the meeting is. I thought when we discussed it that it made sense from the perspective of this operates with some independence from the office of the superintendent, so it basically people can feel like they're having the committee serves a purpose of reviewing this independent of the superintendent. That was my take on it, but Scott, do you have any?
I saw it in some senses as a workload issue. So
okay.
the superintendent is not burdened with every aspect of what's going on with the district, but it also provides a level of independence that the ultimate recommendation for whatever's the action that's going to be taken comes from his desk upon a review of what the committee itself has done. So I saw him as very much involved with the overall process that brings it to the board and ultimately appears on the board's agenda, but at a more refined stage of the process.
I appreciate that.
Go ahead.
All right, so I appreciate the workload issue, but also from like an organizational standpoint, if there are any concerns about the superintendent is the person at the top of the organization who is most best situated to understand the roles of the people who sit underneath of the superintendent. And so if there are any questions of like equitable distribution of work or like who's been assigned what, like that is information that kind of resides with the superintendent position, I feel, and like you can tell me I'm wrong, but like for me, I don't really understand how absent the superintendent, like I feel like there would just end up being a lot of back and forth because I just feel like the superintendent is situated in a place that that person has a broad picture of what is happening in the district and is very well situated to have important things to say in terms of compensation for various positions.
Yeah, go ahead, Deb.
I mean, one option, which was not something that Amy and I had time to undertake, would be for board leadership to reach out to other school districts, comparable school districts to us, find out if they have such a committee in their school district, what is the compensation or what is the composition of their particular committee and how is it run? Like I know you mentioned that the IU has something similar, but is the IU director sitting in the committee? And if the IU director is, then why wouldn't the superintendent? And so again, trying to figure out what are the norms. I appreciate the workload issue. I'm not trying to add too much work, but I would tend to agree with Jackie that, you know, sort of like, you know, if we're looking at issues of bringing in a new principal, we'd bring in the assistant superintendent. But if we don't have that lens in some way from the superintendent's office, I feel like the committee would be missing information that would be super helpful. But again, since I've not been part of the process, I don't know how much back and forth there currently is in the current process. And so it's a matter of thinking about how does that information get shared, streamlining of the process, being cognizant of your workloads as well, right? Because this would be asking you to add people to a process that you're already doing. But I hope that it would be seen as a cooperative, collaborative partnership. That's why it seemed like a good idea to me.
Speaking to the IU
Yeah.
issue, the executive director at the time, Dr. Endler, was on the committee. The committee was composed of 4 people. So one board member, Dr. Endler, the HR director, and I was on it as well. And it was a limited duration committee. It could be reconstituted whenever it needs to be, but it was to address a specific set of issues that had arisen at that time. And Jackie, I don't remember when we last met, but it's been probably over a year at this point.
Yeah, I wasn't on that committee, so.
I know, but it's been some time. So at this point in time, as proposed right now, we're looking at 5 regular members plus as needed participants. So it's a broader based committee already than what the IU had.
Oh, I don't know
Go
if
ahead,
that was
Amy.
me. I'm sorry.
Nope.
I think you make valid points. I think my hope is that we're a relatively collegial environment and we can utilize this to maximize everybody's workload, but also have more than one set of eyes on things. We know sometimes coming from a different viewpoint may recognize or recognize some kind of challenge or some kind of issue that might be worth being cognizant of. So I think of it a little bit like a recommendation to the superintendent. I mean, you would make a recommendation, so you're just enlisting some extra help and a conversation to make sure we make high-quality recommendations to the superintendent. And to Scott's point, some representation from the superintendent or the cabinet would be probably present, relevant to whatever work group we're talking about that doesn't have a bargaining unit. But I also agree, I think the May, the annual, hey, let's take a quick look at everything, make sure we feel comfortable with where everyone is, what's changed in certain work groups or job descriptions or other things. Are there any things that need to be addressed? I do kind of feel like, that will be important to have the superintendent be part of, especially when we're having a conversation about triggering potential PSBA review of market ranges. So we haven't done that in quite a long period of time. I think Debbie, you said you remembered it was just before your group came on 4 or 5 years ago. So it's probably about 5+ years ago. We were just implementing it probably when your cohort came onto the board. And if I recall correctly, that was thought to be relevant for a certain period of time, and then we would have to revisit it. And I think we unfortunately hit Linda's retirement and Michelle's coming in probably right around when that window happened. And so that's another reason having a committee might help just the organization in general have some redundancy when we have someone go ill, step off, something else, then hopefully there's some member of that committee that's maybe overlapped and may have some insight to course correct. And so I think that's one of the base values of having a committee is some of that institutional memory and things like that. So I think it's a little bit of both, and I think it can, on the day-to-day kind of issues, operate and make a recommendation to the superintendent. And I think there will be certain conversations that it will be critical for the superintendent to participate in. So that would be my suggestion.
Okay. Comments? Michelle, I did just want to take an opportunity to ask, the way that we, or that Scott and we have discussed and kind of laid this out, do you see this as something that would be helpful for a process that I think you are already doing to some degree?
Yes, I do. I think that establishing a very clear process and communicating that process is important. Randy and I have met and talked about this, and we worked with Dr. Eiter to take a look at this memo before it was presented, making sure that it fell in line with what we're currently doing as far as a practice. And as Mr. Johnson said, we are trying to look horizontally and vertically at the ranges that are currently within a certain group when we're making a recommendation, presenting that to Mr. Johnson so that he can look at all angles of that. So I think, having the committee's eyes on that is going to be doing the same type of work that we're already doing and presenting to him for recommendation and approval.
Okay. Is there a hand? Other comments? I know we're getting a little late. So as to the 2 board members, I don't know if we need to establish, since this is just informational membership, but some of the conversations that certainly Rebecca and I and other people have had is that it would make, we thought it would make sense to ask Dr. Dr. Anderson expressed an interest potentially in being on that committee, as well as Dr. Bader. So, but I haven't heard from other board members if they're interested or, yes.
I thought I sent you an email saying I was interested. but-
You probably did. Okay. So does this sound like something we could bring back at the next meeting to formalize? Are there still kind of questions about makeup, or does this feel pretty good? Let's see any other questions. No? Okay. Well, we'll continue that work. Deb, it sounded like you would, it would be helpful if we reached out to some other districts. Is there other information you think would be helpful?
I guess if Mr. Johnson is comfortable with being involved specifically only at that yearly review, then I guess I'm comfortable with it. If that was a question of what we wanted to do for composition, then I thought we could look into what other districts do for comparison. I guess I'll leave that up.
Whenever we do anything new, we usually try to find a similar cohort district.
Yeah.
And ask them, well, how do you do it? So it's never a bad piece to have that information. I don't know that it has to necessarily hang us up on moving forward, but it would always be good to have as a touch point to reassure, everybody that there's not something they've come across that they say, hey, I wish we did it this differently, or we added this person after a couple years because we found it to be a voice or a pair of eyes that we needed. So.
Okay. All right. Yeah, go ahead, Ann.
Just as you're putting the committee together, so if this is going to be a standing committee, our policy on committees say that that's comprised of no more than 4 board members. So I just want to make sure that that is, okay, cool.
I think the intent had been probably to cap it at 2, just for the sake of scheduling. Is that right?
Right.
Okay. Okay. So we can kind of discuss that as well.
Yeah, so we would have to approve it and also then approve the appointments.
Okay. All right. So we'll look to do that at the next meeting, I think.
If I could just add some thoughts.
Sure.
I think that having clear process and defining that process can be very good. I think that a lot of your conversation here tonight talked about new hires and one-offs. But there's also number 9 that you did not talk of, and that is establishing new agreements with the actual groups.
Mm-hmm.
And although Michelle and I take the lead on most of those groups, the Act 93 administrators, Mr. Johnson has always been, and the superintendent, even before Mr. Johnson, has always been very involved in that. So I think that could be, I feel like that should be discussed with you, and that you should be mindful of, that you wouldn't be maybe aware of that because you're not in our roles. But the way this is written out, I feel that if he's not called out to be participatory in this committee, or maybe we would continue on with Michelle and I think that we need to understand the clear process. So let's even ignore Act 93 administrators for a minute, but all of the other groups, we need to understand, is this now going to be 5 people without the superintendent meeting with all those other employee groups? Mm-hmm. Or is it still going to be Michelle and I bringing forward to the committee after meeting with those individual group members? And in addition, then let's talk about, I think it's important to talk about Act 93 administrators as well, where the superintendent has been involved in those conversations. Because when you're talking, again, you all talked about one-offs, which are primarily related to compensation. But when you're talking about a new agreement, there could be other items that are related to workload classification, benefits, as well as compensation. So I felt like there was a piece of the conversation missing, and I just wanted to share that.
Thanks, Randy. Do you have another comment?
Gretchen can go. I already said
ahead, Gretchen.
earlier.
Yeah, I just wanted to say that I don't ever remember there having been a committee without 4 board members? I mean, I remember when that policy was written that Ann just brought up, and that was intentional and deliberate. And so this would be deviating from that norm. I'm just bringing out that fact. And then secondly, I wonder where you all will end up when, I mean, as Randy mentioned, when the next negotiations occurs with whichever group comes next for negotiations. Is that going to be like in the bylaws of the committee? Is it going to be assumed that the board members on that committee will be on the negotiating team? Has that been thought out, in terms of the mission of the committee, why the committee will exist? Because it just seems like a logical extension of the committee, but I won't be here, so I'm just putting thoughts in other people's heads.
It could be a logical extension, but that was not the intent of the proposal.
Correct.
It's not talking about negotiations.
It's
with
not talking about
associations.
negotiations.
Agreements
We
are
would
not
go with the-
negotiations, they're meet and discuss.
Yeah.
What,
So I
like
would
if
think
there's
that
a
was
whole new
separate.
board here that, one day there will be, and they go back to this and they go, oh, we have a compensation committee, so clearly they'll be involved in negotiations because negotiations is compensation. So anyhow.
Yeah, I just think it doesn't say anything in this about negotiations.
Yeah, not involved with SCAEA, SCESPA, or any of the ASME groups.
Yeah, then you may want to include that in the documentation of the existence of the committee.
Okay. Yeah, Deb, go ahead.
I just wanted to thank Randy for highlighting in particular the number 9, because I kind of forgot as I was reading it. I actually didn't really understand what number 9 even meant. It says meet as needed to discuss restructuring of agreement employees. So that number 9 needs some fleshing out for sure. And I would like to reiterate what Randy said. I think in discussing, maybe it's something that leadership can work out during agenda planning with administration, because you guys are all in the same room together, being a lot more specific to Gretchen's point, about what is the specific process? What is the specific process for this group of employees? What is the specific process for the yearly overview that should 100% include? Is the specific process for thinking about Act 93 different, because that will often include something more than just the compensation, right? So I think spelling out a lot more specifics will be helpful in helping us think through how that would work. Just to Gretchen's question, we have had only 2 people on the CCL committee for the last 3? Yeah, for the last 2 years. There's only officially 2 people on the CCL committee because we've been doing it as a committee of the whole. So there is a little bit of precedent for that. When we do negotiations with SCAEA, for example, there were 3 board reps for the recent negotiations. I think when we did SCESPA, there was only
2, usually 2.
2, yeah. So, I mean, I think this particular committee is really different than any of the other board committees we have, because it is really a joint committee, not a committee of the board, but a committee of the board. In my opinion, I view it as a committee of the board and administration. So I don't feel like it needs, I think 4 board members would be too many.
Yeah.
I was just looking at number 9, and I can't make that sentence make sense. I'm sorry.
These employees that we're talking about that are not part of SCESPA, SCAEA, or AFSCME have employee agreements.
Oh, okay, so it should be restructuring of employee agreements and among Act 91 employees, something
Agreement
like that.
employees or employee
Yeah,
agreements, yes.
But we're not restructuring employees, we're restructuring something else.
Correct. That's correct. And it's the multiple agreements that fall between that Act 93 agreement and the unionized agreements. and there's 6 or 7 of those separate agreements.
Okay, so I have fixed number 9 in my notes. Got it. Circled, starred. Okay.
Edit the language. So when I made this proposal at the beginning, I did not know that we had 7 separate employee groups that did not have individual contracts or were subject to a collective bargaining agreement. So Randy and Michelle educated me on that shortcoming. I do not see this group at all as supplanting what they have done. I see it as supplementing, as I said earlier. So the example that Randy gave, that he and Michelle would be meeting with groups, my expectation is that that would continue, and then once they did whatever they do with that group, it would come back to this committee. Then the committee does what it does, passes it on to CJ. With respect to Act 93, it would continue the same as it has done before. CJ would be part of the process. He would be one of the individuals on the as-needed basis that comes into whatever group that they're talking about. That's my thought on it. That's not necessarily the group's.
Okay.
Yeah, I was I was going to say that in similar to negotiating teams, there are certainly times when there are issues that the administration might raise with the negotiating team to say, hey, we would have pre-meetings, right, before we would go in and discuss, hey, this is the topic we're going to be working on today. Here's some of the latest data we have. Here's some of the things that are concerns for us or whatever. And then we would be reporting back to the rest of the board, updating them on the progress of negotiations. And I think this, to Scott's point, would be very similar in terms of that number 9. Like you, I glossed over it because it didn't register with me. So I appreciate you calling attention to it because that is a very different thing. Mm-hmm. I see that as sort of the way Scott described it. Makes a lot of sense that with the majority of the groups, you would still meet with them. I think it's worth discussing, the engagement of that committee. Maybe it might be appropriate to be a little more engaged with the Act 93 group. Maybe not certainly every meeting, but being that's kind of a big one. Sometimes there might be at least maybe some more touch points with the committee as opposed to sometimes the other groups are a little more clear cut and straightforward. There's one more thing I wanted to add. Oh, and I agree. I don't see this, and it's fine. I think it's appropriate to call it out. I don't see this as being an automatic into negotiations. If anything, there's a good chance you may not want the same people for a variety of reasons. One being workload alone. To your point, this may, when those cycles come up, this could be meeting pretty regularly. And then if negotiating cycles are coming up too, those are pretty intensive. We often suggest members of negotiating committees in part for their temperament and other traits, but also sometimes, unfortunately, their availability is a part of how we wind up with some people being able to participate in negotiating because they're simply the most available board members to do it. So that's another reason why I wouldn't make that automatic assumption because negotiating is a pretty intensive thing and you've got to be available at the times and it's also helpful to have some, good temperament.
Okay. All right, other comments? I do think we could potentially add a third board member, but not, I'm wondering if we could do it as having 3 or 4 people on the committee, but only 2 in any given meeting as available. Oh, that's a good point. Okay. Yeah.
As this conversation unfolds, good for us to potentially ask ourselves, what's the goal of the compensation committee? Just because I feel like people are bringing up different ideas that point to different goals. And so I'm just going to propose that we might want to all reflect on that and potentially make sure we're fulfilling the goal and need that we see as needing.
I was seeing it as twofold. Number one, having a little bit more board involvement in the process. So the board is heavily involved in certain aspects of compensation, but some of them come to the board in final format or nearly final format asking for action without very much, if any, board involvement up to that stage. the second component of why I proposed this committee is the 3 or 4 line items within the memo that are either pending right now, waiting for some entity within the district to review and comment and recommend on them, or those that we foresee being regularly, whether it's annually or less frequent than that, coming up for action, and having some repository within the district to receive that request and take action on it to bring to the board for final action.
So that makes sense to me. It's just another oversight role for the board, but a chance to see something before it comes to the full board. And so I think, like, great. I don't want it to like end up being. I think it would be a mistake for people to think it's more than an oversight role.
All right, I would agree with that. So we can bring this back potentially, we'll do a little bit of work and figuring out maybe a little refinement of the charge. I will work with Randy and Michelle and Scott, and maybe we'll try to find some examples of committees in other districts, if that sounds all right. Good. Okay. That concludes the information reports. So we'll move on to the next item on our agenda is opportunity for board members to share updates on their committee initiatives. CIU report, Jen?
We don't have a meeting until Thursday, so I'll take it if that's okay with you.
Yeah, I was just going to say our meeting's on Thursday.
Yeah, so we have a meeting Thursday. We have 4 new board members, and we're actually going to have to. We unfortunately our current president is not returning, so we're going to have to do a reorg of some kind at the meeting, or at least get interim roles in. So that is what's going on with the IU, along with all the building stuff. So I'll just summarize that.
All right. Ed Foundation, Deb?
We had a meeting on December 3rd. We re-elected the same officers for 2026. Dwayne Bullock is president, Luke Massaro is vice president, and Bill Coker is treasurer. He talked about a grant application, which in fact we approved tonight, was the autoclave purchase. And then there was an initial discussion of the maroon and gray class. So the foundation chooses the individuals who will be honored at the banquet. And so if I haven't already said, the banquet will be on May 1st, and hopefully board members might be able to attend. Yeah, that's it.
All right, thank you. CTC, that's Jen and I. We haven't had a meeting recently. Do you have anything you want to share?
Just that it was an absolute pleasure to be able to go in and get the full tour last week. Thank you to Dr. Morden and everyone who took time out of their teaching and to come and tell me all about what they do and what they're about. And it basically blew my mind, the amount of opportunities that our kids have at their disposal, things that I would happily pay to have people teach me are being taught in our high school. Yeah. And it was just amazing.
Yeah, the CTC in the last week had the 2, well actually all 3 middle schools come to get a review of all the programs that they offer and take a tour. So I think that you were on one of those, or you were there on your own.
I had a personalized tour.
Excellent. Yeah. Okay, great. Good to know.
Just because I'll be, since he's,
sure.
Dr. Morden said since I'll be on the board, he wanted me to.
Fair enough. All right. We will go to CAC's athletics, Deb and Rebecca.
It has not met, but I just wrote myself a note to reach out to Lauren, and we'll make sure we do that. He caught me at the last policy meeting and said, we need to talk about this. And I said, yes, we do, and I'll follow up.
Okay. Facilities, I don't know that we've, We haven't met. Finance, Deb, Jackie, Rebecca.
We met and went over everything that we've already gone over here tonight, so we don't really need to repeat it.
Okay. School health and safety.
They met on the 18th, and I was traveling, so couldn't be there. But there was a shift, and so Jonathan, if you want to also help, because it's school safety and advisory committee now, and so you were wonderful and kind of went over the agenda with me, which was a really robust agenda in terms of reviewing emergency operations. So you're putting together your expertise with the safety, and then Stephanie is leading the wellness. And so I know that she updated on the bullying audit. So do you want to say anything more about joining those two together? I think it's really smart.
So what we found was the emergency operations group, as well as the school health and safety, we merged those together because safety and mental health and school safety and physical safety and emergency operations, they kind of all kind of go together hand in hand. And we were doing a lot of repetitive meetings internally and externally. So we decided to combine those. And we also learned in that process that the wellness committee was already combined. And so Megan Shaper gives her updates at that meeting as well.
Yep. So, yeah, I just appreciate you providing, I think you gave all of us the minutes for that, and I think that covers it.
All right.
April, yeah, the next one is in April. Thank you, John.
And technology, we have not met recently. We'll probably next quarter. I'm looking at Justin, he's nodding at me, so sometime January, February, we'll be on that. All right. Any other questions, comments? Probably not. All right. So that concludes our agenda for this evening. Looking ahead to future meetings, we have tomorrow, December 16th, here in the Panorama Village Boardroom. At 10:30 a.m. will be the Policy Development Committee meeting. On January 6th, 2026, District-wide Facilities Master Plan Community Forum and Steering Committee. That is at 6 p.m. in the Park Forest Middle School Commons area. January 12th, 2026, we have the Committee of the Whole regular board meeting at 7 p.m. here in Panorama Village. The regular board meeting, January 26th, 2026, also in this room at 7 p.m. And finally, on January 29th, 2026, we have a board work session with students. That is at 12 p.m. in the high school black box. And please note that January's policy committee date will be set at tomorrow's meeting. And with that, I would like to adjourn the meeting of the State College Area School District Board of Directors. Have a good evening, everyone.